Chapter 763. Since Sun Lang said so, Sister Lin and Sister Bayu naturally had no objection. Lin Dayu had been unhappy with Madame Ma for a long time. She hated that this old woman's Taoist skills were extraordinary, and she was very favored by the old lady. Shui Baochai, this woman, pretended to be serious and refused to help her. She, Miss Lin, was alone and couldn't openly send troops to crush her. Now Sun Lang said so. It was naturally what she wanted. As long as her brother took action, even if there were 8 or 10 Madame Ma, he could kill her with one finger. Shui Baochai naturally didn't care. Her temperament was upright and steady, and she would not easily become murderous. Once she was angry, she would roar like thunder, and she would not stop until she had killed her entire family. She would definitely eliminate the source of the problem. She had only been furious once in her entire life. Madame Ma just relied on her clever mouth to cheat money. She was just a greedy and mediocre person. She was far from being able to make Lin Dayu want to kill her. Although she knew that this old woman was cunning, she was a wonderful person who knew how to take advantage of the situation. Otherwise, she couldn't make the old lady happy. Since she could make the old lady happy, Shui Baochai didn't care about her greed and little tricks. Compared with the money she made from Rongwa's mansion, the old lady's happiness was more important. Therefore, although she knew that this old woman was used to pretending to be mysterious, she still turned a blind eye to her behavior. She understood this principle a long time ago. But now, of course, as long as her husband was happy, he could do whatever he wanted. The so-called "a married woman follows her husband" was the current situation. Since her husband, who was in charge of the family, came back, she naturally followed her husband's decision unless it was a major matter that she had to persuade him. So the three of them reached a consensus that they didn't go to find Jia Tanshan first, but to take care of this old woman first. Although Dao Granny Ma had a lot of evil Taoist techniques and a strong spiritual sense, Sun Lang had the power of the 3 divine swords. He could be said to have learned from heaven and earth. The spiritual energy of the 7 planets spread out, and the earth responded to it from afar, hiding the 3 of them in the nature. Even if Dao Granny Ma's spiritual sense was 10 times stronger, she would not be able to find out that someone was spying on them. Sun Lang's eyes were like lightning as they fell on Madame Ma, scrutinizing everything about her. However, this old woman was completely unaware that she was being scrutinized by one of the few great grandmasters in the world. She continued to walk on her own. She seemed to be very familiar with everything in Rongwa Manor. Her footsteps were steady, and her direction was clear. She turned a blind eye to those magnificent carved beams and painted rafters. It seemed that she was indeed a regular here. This old woman's Dao technique is quite interesting. In Sun Lang's eyes, this old woman's body was wrapped in a layer of invisible black smoke. She was mysterious, deep, and full of evil, causing people to dislike her. He slightly furrowed his brows, and the murderous intent in his heart rose. Even if this old woman was completely innocent, he would not let her get close to the old matriarch. With a glance, he could tell that she was not a good person. Sun Lang made up his mind and asked, "Who is that old woman at the side?" Lin Dayu glanced and said, "That is Wang Momo from Madame Xing's room. She is also a nuisance." Shui Baochai furrowed her brows and said, "Pin her, you have to call her auntie." Lin Dayu snorted. Okay, you have too many rules. This Wang Momo takes advantage of her seniority all day long. She acts big in front of the servants and maids in the manor and doesn't know how to look at people's faces. She thinks that because she is Auntie's concubine, people have to curry favor with her. If they don't, they will cause trouble. Sometimes she even dares to use her claws on us. I taught her a lesson. I heard that she angered Annie half to death. Sun Lang slightly nodded his head. He knew who Auntie Madame Xing was. A few years ago, he had tutored her. Jia Sherdao had also told him before. This aunt was not Jiasu's wife, but Rongwa's aunt. In the previous generation, there were 2 brothers in Rongwa's family. His father, Jia Zheng, was the second, and he had an elder brother named Jia Shi. Madame Xing was his wife. She had remarried and later became a widow. The Heaven's origin battlefield was extremely cruel after all. The Rongwa family, which had been prosperous in the beginning, was blown away by the wind and rain. From Jia Daishan, Jia Shi, Jia Zheng, and even Jia Shi's 2 sons, they all died on the battlefield, leaving a family of widows. Jia Zheng's wife, Lady Wang, also died of illness not long after because she missed her husband too much. She only left the only son of the Ronghua family, who was Master Bao. To be honest, this was good news for Sun Lang. After all, if his cheap mother, Madame Wang, was still alive, he probably could not count on acting anymore. There was no mother in the world who could not recognize her son. He could not continue acting in front of Madame Wang. In this case, there were only 2 people left in the second generation of the Ronghua Manor. One was Madame Xing, the widow of the first master Jia Shi, and the other was concubine Zhao, the second master Jia Zheng's concubine. Concubine. This concubine gave birth to a daughter for Jia Zheng. Her name was Jia Tanshun, the half-sister of the second master Bao. At this time, she was taking charge of the situation in the manor. Thinking of this, Sun Lang's heart suddenly moved. He asked casually, "How have Annie Zhao and concubine Zhao been all these years?" Sister Bao and Sister Lin looked at each other with a strange expression. Sun Lang knew something was wrong. He said gently, "Don't hide it. If you have something to say, just say it. We are much closer than they are." These words were very pleasant. The 2 girls smiled and began to whisper. Madame Xing and concubine Zhao's position in the Ronghua Manor was very awkward. First of all, Madame Xing was a second wife. Her maternal family was not a big family and could not provide her with any help or confidence. Second, she was stubborn and did not gain the favor of the old madam. Since there was no one in her maternal family, and she did not gain the favor of the old madam, it was naturally not her turn to be the head of the family. In recent years, the old madam was getting older, and the power of the family was handed over to Wang Shifeng and other members of the 3rd generation. Not to mention Feng Lotzi, Lin Daiyu, and Shui Baochai were originally smart and pure women who had been trained in the Tianyuan battlefield. They also had military power. How could Madame Xing compete with them? Therefore, Madame Xing's position in the manor was very awkward. Concubine Zhao was even worse. Although Madame Xing was a second wife, she was still the legal wife of the first branch. Concubine Zhao was a concubine. What hope did she have? The only thing she could count on was her daughter. Although Tanshun was born from a concubine, old Madame missed her deceased son and treated her equally. She taught Tanshun to be smart and capable. Not only was she doted on by old Madame, Wang Shifeng and the others also praised her very much. Tanshun even shared some of the family's management affairs and entered the 3rd generation of Ronghua Manor's decision-makers. She also became her mother's hope. Concubine Zhao was a concubine and was born as a servant. Her vision was limited. In her opinion, no matter how doted her daughter was and how capable she was, she still had to marry. If she married into a good family, not only would she benefit for the rest of her life, but her birth mother would also benefit. Therefore, it was more important for her to find a good family as soon as possible. How could she stay in the Ronghua Manor and waste her time? When she became an old lady, she would be worthless and no one would take a fancy to her. Therefore, in addition to looking for a good family for her daughter and advising her to marry early, concubine Zhao also had an idea from her daughter. Since she was involved in the management of the family affairs, why not leave some money behind? Firstly, it was for her mother. Secondly, she could save it for her own use in the future. She took the opportunity to tell Tanshun these things, which annoyed the 3rd Mississippi. But she was her mother after all, so she had no choice but to bury these helplessness and grievances in her heart. Jia Shidao naturally didn't know these things, but Lin Daiyu and Shui Baochai knew very well. After all, concubine Zhao was an elder in Tanshun's birth mother, so they couldn't interfere. But now that their husband was back, they naturally had to complain. While Sun Lang asked about Madame Xing and concubine Zhao's recent situation, Sister Bao and Sister Lin talked about these things in a roundabout way. Sun Lang nodded slightly. "I know." Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu looked at each other and smiled. They were very optimistic and happy for Tanshun. Their husband was the foundation of the Ronghua mansion. Once he came back, the lifeless Jia family would be swept away, and many problems would no longer be a problem. Take Tanshun, for example. In the future, if concubine Zhao forced her, Tanshun could use her brother as a shield. Concubine Zhao was just a concubine. Even if she was the wife of the first wife, she had to follow the woman's precepts. Tanshun was just a concubine, so her husband wouldn't care about her. But they didn't know that their husband was thinking about something else at this time. Madame Xing had no children. Her status in the Rongwa mansion was awkward. She wasn't liked by the old lady, loved by the servants, respected by the younger generation, had no real power, and was a second wife. With all these conditions added together, her sense of belonging to the Rongwa mansion must be extremely indifferent. Basically, she wouldn't have any worries. It was easy to add fuel to the fire of the Rongwa mansion, but now it was deteriorating day by day. The possibility of her disloyalty was very high. Concubine Zhao was even more so. She was originally a servant, so her vision was naturally not big. She must have realized the terrible situation of the Jia family and was eager to leave this sinking ship. The only way out was to sell her daughter for a good price. Once she had this idea, a corresponding flaw would appear and she would be easily swayed. The possibility of her being bribed and deceived was also very high. These two women didn't have any prestige or real power in the Rongwa mansion, but their status and seniority were there. They could exert some influence and do some things through their identities. Such people were very easy to bribe or take advantage of. Sun Lang thought so in his heart. Perhaps even the meticulous Xue Baochai didn't have this kind of suspicion. As the saying goes, it's dark under the light. Even Sister Bao wouldn't cast a suspicious look at the two elders for a while. But Sun Lang could. Because he wasn't a member of the Rongwa mansion, he didn't have a strong sense of belonging to the Jia family. In his eyes, everyone here was a stranger who he had never met. They were all suspected of betrayal. He would examine them one by one. While he was thinking, he heard Sister Lin whisper, "Why did they go that way?" Sun Lang looked up. Madame Ma and Mammy Wong went all the way east along the sedan chair aisle. They turned to the Chuehua gate and went through the handrail corridor. Then, they should have gone south through the front yard and left from the corner gate. Unexpectedly, they went through another path and quietly went to the courtyard in the southwest. Xue Baochai's expression became a little more dignified. This is not the direction of the mansion. Where are they going? She originally thought that her husband just wanted to teach this old woman who pretended to be mysterious a lesson. The so-called strange whereabouts and suspicious motives were just excuses. But now it seemed that there was actually a problem. Lin Dayu snorted coldly. This old woman really has ulterior motives. Brother, let's go after them. Wait, Sun Lang seemed to have found something and whispered, "Look over there." The two young girls looked in the direction he was pointing, only to find that there was a beautiful figure sneakily approaching from another direction. It seemed that she was also following Madame Ma and Mammy Wong. Xue Baochai looked carefully and saw the appearance of the approaching person. She was half surprised and half happy as she called out, "Qingwen." The girl had a slender waist and sharp shoulders. Her eyebrows were similar to Lin Dayu's. Her makeup was exquisite and moving. She was the maid Qing, one who performed well yesterday, and was even praised by Jia Su. Why did she appear here? Should they stop her? The two girls knew Qingwen and had a good relationship. They were happy to reunite with her. But Sun Lang waved his hand at their inquiring look. Don't say anything first. Whether Qingwen came here by coincidence or was sent by Jia Tanshun, let her scout the way first. After all, the three of them had to keep their whereabouts a secret. If they could not show up, they would not show up. Although the two girls felt that it was a pity, since Sun Lang said so, they could only obey. Qingwen tactfully followed behind the two old women, carefully moving forward. After she had walked for a while, Sun Lang and the other two slowly followed behind her. Qingwen was completely unaware of this. The three groups of people formed a classic situation of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Moreover, after Madame Ma bid farewell to the old madam, she didn't leave the mansion immediately. Instead, she came here mysteriously with Mammy Wong, which seemed extremely suspicious. As they approached their destination, Shue Baochai said in surprise, "This place is the outer study and martial arts teaching hall of Grandmaster Jiashi. What are they doing here?" Sun Lang keenly grasped the key point of the question. "Is there anyone living here now?" Shue Baochai shook her head blankly. "No, Master's family has all died in battle. The study room and martial arts teaching hall are useless. No one can use them, but it is not easy to tear them down or use them for other purposes. First, old Madam is nostalgic. Second, it is not good. Third, she seemed to realize something and whispered, Third, this is Jiashi's study room and martial arts teaching hall. Since Jiashi is dead, the key is in the hands of Madame Xing. According to the rules, this place is under Madame Xing's control. If she wants to use it for other purposes, who can tell her?" Sun Lang sneered. This was the abandoned study room and martial arts teaching hall under Madame Xing's control. And Mammy Wang, who brought Madame Ah here, was Madame Xing's concubine. It was too much of a coincidence. And Qingwen seemed to have found this amazing coincidence. Looking at the two old women entering the courtyard, the girl couldn't help but quicken her pace. She was anxious. Sun Lang's martial arts were excellent. Lin and Shui were familiar with the terrain. The three of them approached from the other side. Qingwen had quietly entered the courtyard and carefully moved to the main room of the study room. Sun Lang and the other two were at the back of the room, while Qingwen was at the front. The two groups of people were separated by a room and listening together. Madame Ma and Mammy Wang were talking inside. Madame Ma's voice wasn't as cunning as imagined. Instead, it was full of magnetism. The tone was soft and powerful, revealing a bewitching rhythm. Indeed, if it was that kind of old woman with shifty eyes and a sharp voice, how could she coax old Madame to believe her without any doubt? She could make people feel disgusted with just a few words. She said, "Mammy Wang, hasn't he arrived yet?" In contrast, Mama Wang's voice was much more unpleasant. It was sharp and vulgar, making people imagine her face in their hearts. She smiled and said, Don't worry. Don't be impatient. They will definitely come. Don't worry." Who? Who would come? Sun Lang's expression changed slightly. Sister Lin and Sister Bao were also suspicious. They held their breath and knew that they had stumbled upon a big secret. Madame Ma said slowly, "How can we not worry? Time waits for no one." Mammy Wang comforted her, "Don't worry. Anyway, it won't take much time. Besides, there are few people here. It will only take a moment and we can get it done." Their words were like clouds in the clouds, causing people to be at a loss. Sun Lang listened attentively. Not only could he hear the conversation between the two, he could also hear Qingwen's movements on the other side. Just now, the girl seemed to want to leave. Was she going to ask for help? However, when she heard Old Lady Wang's words, she decided to stay. She was obviously afraid that after she left, the person that Old Lady Wang and Old Lady Ma were waiting for would come. The three of them quickly settled the matter and then slipped away without a trace. At that time, even if they called for reinforcements, it would be useless. It was better to stay and observe the situation. Sun Lang shook his head with a smile. The girl's worry was obviously going to be in vain. As long as Sun Lang was here, no matter who came this time, they would all have to stay. Inside the room, Madame Ma said again, "Do you think she will come?" Mammy Wang's tone was very firm. "Yes. Don't worry. She will come. I know her very well. If there is such an opportunity in front of her, she will definitely seize it." Sun Lang frowned. She knew her very well. Seize the opportunity? Who was she talking about? Could it be Concubine Zhao? He remembered his previous guess. Concubine Zhao's position in the mansion was very awkward. Her daughter was not of the same mind as her. She had no hope and felt helpless about the future. She was easily swayed and easily bought. And Qingwen on the opposite side seemed to be listening for fear that she would miss a word. Madame Ma said lightly, "It seems that you really know her very well." Granny Wang suddenly let out a cold laugh, and her words seemed to be gnashing her teeth. Of course, how could such a stubborn and arrogant little girl not come forward when she saw such a thing? Who does she think we are waiting for? As soon as she said this, Sun Lang and the others were shocked. The wind on the opposite side whistled. Qingwen also reacted. She seemed to want to run, but Madame Ma suddenly sneered. There was a strange sound, and cold air overflowed. A strange power came out from the room. Their target was actually Qingwen. Chapter 764. This was really out of Sun Lang's expectation. He thought that Mammy Wong led Madame Ma here for some ulterior motive. He heard that they were waiting for someone, so he thought he could catch a big fish this time. Now it seemed that their target was Qingwen. He exchanged glances with the two girls beside him and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. What was going on? Qingwen was just a maid in Rongwa's mansion. How could these two old maids hurt her? Was it a personal grudge? According to Mammy Wong's tone, she seemed to have a big problem with Qingwen, so it was reasonable that she begged Madame Ma to avenge her and teach Qingwen a lesson. Or was it a coincidence? They were really waiting for someone, but found that Qingwen was following them by chance, so they quietly set up a trap and took Qingwen down when she was unprepared. These two possibilities seemed to be reasonable, but each had its own flaws. But in addition, what did Qingwen have that made Madame Ma take action personally? Unless Sun Lang's eyes moved slightly. There was another possibility. He put his finger to his lips and made a gesture of silence, stopping Lin and Shui from breaking in to save Qingwen, because he heard Mammy Wong's complacent laughter, which contained the pleasure of revenge. According to Sister Lin's description, this Nanny Wong was a clumsy and uncouth old woman. She was tough on the outside, but cowardly on the inside. She was narrow-minded and thought that everyone had to flatter her, just because she was Madame Xing's concubine. If they didn't flatter her, it would be a great sin in her eyes. She would find an opportunity to seek revenge. Now, no matter why they kidnapped Qingwen, Mammy Wong must be very complacent to take down this little girl who she didn't like. As the saying goes, complacency makes one forget oneself, especially this kind of vulgar and superficial old maid. Once she got the chance to take revenge, she would definitely show her arrogant face. In order to make Qingwen convinced of her defeat and to show that she, Mammy Wong, was wise as the sea and had the whole picture, she would probably start to explain the ins and outs of the matter. This was because she wanted to enjoy the joy of victory to the greatest extent. She wanted to enjoy the pleasure of trampling on her opponent and feeling proud and elated. This was a common problem for villains. The scientific name was impulsive face-slapping, also known as counterkill syndrome. Therefore, Sun Lang decided to wait and see if the two old maids would confess. The main thing was to rush in and knock down the two old maids and then interrogate them. Old. Z. Really? Of course. Do it. No. They had arrived. Damn it. If it was a young and beautiful girl or a charming young married woman, it would be fine. They were two shriveled old women. What should I do? I'm also in despair. The problem of age and appearance combined together formed a huge moat, causing Sun Lang to shrink back. Tell me, if you were an old woman as beautiful as a flower, it would be fine. It's not impossible to pinch your nose and interrogate you. But you're old and ugly. Aren't you going too far? Sun Lang listened to the movements in the room as he carried out a complex mental activity. On the other side, Qingwen was caught off guard and was attacked by old Madame Ma. She would never have thought that these two old women were actually here for her. Although this girl had an extraordinary talent and her martial arts weren't weak, she didn't have any defense. Secondly, she was a young girl. After her whereabouts were exposed, she instinctively felt panic. Thirdly, old Madame Ma used Taoist techniques, which she had never heard of or seen before. Therefore, she fell for it. She had grown up in Rongwa Manor since she was a child. Although she cultivated superior martial arts, and even old Madame would personally instruct her, under the protection of the prestigious Rongwa Manor, she had almost no experience in fighting an enemy. If she encountered a martial arts expert, she could still exchange dozens of moves with them. However, Taoist priest Ma's Taoist techniques were treacherous and sinister. Only a ball of pitch-black evil fog would hit her in the face. How could she resist? Qingwen didn't know how to block it, so she could only dodge. Qingwen immediately retreated, but the mist arrived first, much faster than her. The girl was still in midair, but the mist had already floated over. Qingwen felt her head swell, and her vision became blurry. Her true qi immediately dissipated. The fog condensed into chains in the air and wrapped around the stumbling Qingwen. Qingwen wanted to call for help, but the black fog wrapped around her. She felt her throat become blocked, and she couldn't speak. The black chain pulled, and the girl screamed as she was dragged into the room. The door of the study was slammed shut, and the windows on both sides automatically closed. It was as if there were pairs of invisible ghost hands closing the doors and windows, blocking the sunlight and leaving everything in the gloomy darkness. Sun Lang heard everything clearly. Although he didn't see the process with his own eyes, with a strong hearing and spiritual sense, everything that happened in front of the room couldn't escape his perception. He smiled coldly. This old Madame Ma's Taoist techniques were not only not weak, but also very interesting. Qingwen was dragged into the room and fell to the ground. The girl wanted to struggle, but she felt that her hands and feet were weak. It seemed that old Madame Ma's Taoist techniques had restricted her qi flow. The girl secretly complained in her heart, but she also knew that it was useless to pretend to be stupid and beg for mercy. She refused to show weakness and shouted, "What are you doing?" "Let go of the girl." Old Madame Wang sneered. "Fairy, what did I say? This girl relies on her appearance to be prettier than others and has a clever mouth. Every day, she dresses up like a flower in jade. In front of people, if she doesn't agree with a word, she will raise her eyebrows and scold people. It seems that there is no one more capable than her in the whole Rongwa mansion. Look at her now. She is still stubborn." Qingwen's almond-shaped eyes widened and shouted, "You old woman, I just had a few words with you, and you actually asked old Madame Ma to harm me. You really have a wicked heart." Without waiting for Wang Mama to reply, she immediately looked at Madame Ma and said, "Granny, you don't know. Now, Rongwa Manor is in troubled times. Even the Marquis of Ningwa Manor next door is watching. Although the safety of a little girl like me isn't worth anything, in this situation, it's not a trivial matter. Granny often comes to visit old Madam and visits old Madam. You have a familial friendship with us. How can we ruin our friendship because of an old woman's instigation?" At that time, old Madam's face won't look good. She also knew that old Madame Ma was a clever person. As long as she told the truth and asked softly, she would know the pros and cons. Now, she still felt that old Madame Ma was instigated by old Madame Wang to make things difficult for her. Otherwise, she was just a little girl in Rongwa Mansion. What benefits did she have to make old Madame Ma take action? Unexpectedly, old Madame Ma and old Madame Wang sneered when they heard her words. Seeing this, Qingwen's heart sank and said, "I won't hide it from you. Do you know why I followed you all the way? Old Madame Ma came to see old Madame out of kindness. We didn't want to stop her. But now there are many things in the mansion. Third young lady asked me to send old Madame Ma off to save you from walking around. I was waiting for you in the front room, but I saw you come here, so I followed you all the way." She looked at old Madame Ma and said in a sincere tone, "It doesn't matter if you take me now. My life is cheap. Even if I die, it doesn't matter. But third young lady didn't see me for a long time. She will definitely look for you to investigate. Where can you go? Why do you want to make everyone suffer because of this small matter?" Old Madame Ma just laughed. "You're really eloquent. You're really good at talking." Old Madame Wang said proudly, "Little hussy, you also have this day, but you're wrong this time. We didn't come to find you for any personal grudge. And third young lady can't look for us. Humph, she can't even protect herself at that time. How could she care about our business?" Qingwen's body shook. She looked at old Madame Wang with an incredulous expression. She was an intelligent woman. Although she was confused at the moment, she judged one thing from old Madame Wang's tone. This damn old madam seemed to want to do something bad to Rongwa Manor. She scolded, "Traitor! Madame Xing won't forgive you for doing this." With a slap, Qingwen's face was slapped. Old Madame Wang said in a sharp voice, "You should worry about yourself. Aren't you eloquent? I hope you can still be eloquent at that time." Qingwen spat at her angrily. Lin Daiyu heard that Qing Wen was beaten and old Madame Wang was showing off, so she couldn't hold back. But Sun Lang didn't know Qing Wen, so he was much calmer than Sister Lin. He looked at Lin Daiyu's inquiring eyes and said with secret voice sending, "You can't take that slap for nothing. Tell her with secret voice sending and ask her what she wants to do with old Madame Ma." Since her brother said so, Sister Lin had no choice but to obey. She followed Sun Lang's direction and sent a message under the cover of 7 Planets Lingxi. Qing Wen was kicked by Mammy Wang again. At this moment, a voice transmission came in. The little girl reacted very quickly. When she heard the familiar whisper introducing herself, she immediately curled up her body and used her loose hair to cover her surprised expression. Then, she slowly restrained her emotions. After hearing Lin Daiyu's words, she had an idea in her mind. Old Madame Wang was about to hit again when Qing Wen shouted, "Wait, wait." Old Madame Wang was stunned and sneered. "You want to beg for mercy?" Qing Wen didn't look at her. She struggled on the ground and turned to look at old Madame Ma. "Granny, since you didn't come for this old thing's personal grudge, then you must want to get something from me or ask me to do something for you. Am I right?" Old Madame Ma was stunned. She wanted to let old Madame Wang dampen Qing Wen's spirit first. She didn't expect the little girl to figure it out so quickly. She said lightly, "You're smart." Qing Wen said proudly, "Then tell me. Also, don't let this old madam humiliate me. Otherwise, a scholar can be killed, but not humiliated. Although I'm not a scholar, I won't be obedient. I know your Taoist skills are amazing and your methods are excellent, but you can't force a melon to be sweet, right?" Old Madame Wang sneered. "Force a melon to be sweet? It's fine as long as there's a melon. It's not like we're the ones eating it. Who cares if it's sweet or not? You little wench might have some ideas in your heart. You still need to dampen your spirit." But old Madame Ma stopped her and nodded. "You're right. Now, there's something you need to do. If you do it well, the benefits will be immeasurable." Qing Wen deliberately asked, "Don't use those empty words to brush me off. Since I've fallen into your hands, Granny doesn't even dare to tell me the truth?" Old Madame Ma smiled, and her tone softened. "There's only one benefit. Now that Rongwa Mansion's big ship is broken, it's about to sink. Little girl, have you seen a sunken ship? When a big ship sinks, it will stir up a whirlpool, just like the mouth of a big beast, swallowing everything. When the people on the ship fall into the water, they will be sucked into the whirlpool. No one can escape, unless," she said lightly, "unless, before the ship starts to sink, you make a plan, such as directly jumping into the water to escape, or putting down the sampan and rowing away, or a noble is willing to give you a ride." Qing Wen was very smart and immediately understood what old Madame Ma was talking about. She was born in a poor family. It was Rongwa Mansion who took her in, raised her, and taught her. Now, not only did she have no lack of food and clothing, she was also proficient in literature and martial arts. She could be said to have both talent and beauty. Old Madame praised her more than once, saying that she wasn't inferior to other young misses. There was no doubt that it was Rongwa Mansion who changed her fate and gave her everything. Therefore, she had deep feelings for Rongwa Mansion and a strong sense of belonging. When she heard this, she was naturally angry in her heart. Everyone kicks a falling wall. Rongwa Mansion's wall hasn't fallen yet, and you're already plotting against it. Young mistress is outside. You'll be in trouble later. Thinking that Lin Daiyu and Xue Baochai were outside, her courage and willpower were all firm. So, she pretended to hesitate, and her face slowly showed that she was moved. This old Madame Ma sneered in her heart. Old Madame Wang was right. This little girl was indeed a thoughtful person. She was probably aware of the decline of Rongwa Mansion. It's good that she's a smart person. So, she said, "How about it? If you do this, there will naturally be nobles who will praise you." Qing Wen stared at her, and her tone involuntarily became weaker. "You tell me first. I'm just a little girl. I don't have much ability. Maybe I'm not as capable as you think." Old Madame Ma was not afraid of her feigning civility. After all, whether she cooperated or not, the result was the same. She said softly, "This is very simple. Anyone can do it, and it's not difficult at all. I just want you to tell the truth." Qingwen blinked her eyes. What truth? Old Madame Ma said slowly. What truth can it be? What did you see in the East Garden yesterday? What happened after that? Qingwen's face changed. She lost her voice. What did you say? Didn't I say it clearly enough? Old Madame Ma's expression was like a smile, but in Qingwen's eyes, there was a deep and strong malice hidden in it. She said in a low voice, I don't need you to make up or lie. What happened yesterday? I just want you to tell the Wang family in detail. Chapter 765. Even though she knew that Lin Daiyu was outside, Qingwen still felt a chill in her heart when she heard this, as if the blood in her body had frozen. What happened yesterday? The corpse in the East Garden. The Wang family's acting head, Wang Wangxing, died in the Rongwa residence. Even though she was just a little girl, she knew how serious this matter was. Moreover, it was not just that. If the cause of Wang Wangxing's death was suspicious, then it was possible that someone deliberately framed him. But the death of his followers was not clear, because the followers who followed Wang Wangxing to the Rongwa residence were killed by Duke Ning. She witnessed it with her own eyes and even helped to dispose of the corpse. Just yesterday, Grandmaster Jia Su suddenly acted ruthlessly, slaughtering the 4 men one by one as if they were ants. The bloody scene and the corpses lying on the ground were still vivid in everyone's minds. At that time, Qingwen secretly swore in her heart that she would let everything she saw and heard rot in her heart. She would never say it out loud. Personally participating in this matter was the trust of Master Jia Su and the third young lady. As a member of the Rongwa residence, she must live up to this trust, because she knew that if these things were exposed, it would set off a huge storm in Jinling City. It could even cause a full-scale war between the Jia family and the Wang family. The consequences were unimaginable. But now, her teeth were slightly chattering, and great fear rose in her heart. How did Madame Ma know? Who leaked the news? And how much did she know? Did she only know what happened in the East Garden? Or did she know that Wang Zixing died there? Or did she know that Master Jia Su killed people? Outside, Lin Daiyu did not move for a long time. Qingwen secretly gritted her teeth. The young mistress was waiting, which meant that her task was not completed yet. She was extremely shocked and uneasy. There were some things that she had to find out. She had to find a way to find out how much inside information this old woman knew. She quickly calculated in her heart, trying to figure out how to get information from Madame Ma's mouth. Suddenly, her heart moved. She fiercely stared at Wang Mama and scolded, "Talkative old thing, don't you have the ability to flatter your master? Why do you still have to rely on young lady to speak?" Wang Mama was scolded by her and subconsciously retorted, "Nonsense. It wasn't me." Before she could speak, Madame Ma turned to look at her, and Wang Mama shut her mouth. Qingwen had already gotten the answer she wanted, but she was even more shocked. If it was just Nanny Wang who told on them, then there would be no problem. Although the news had been blocked yesterday, the servants knew that something big had happened in the East Garden. But at most, they only knew that someone had died, but they didn't know who had died. Since Nanny Wang had heard the news and reported it, Madame Ma certainly didn't know much. At most, she had connected Wang Zixing's disappearance with a murder case in Rongwa Mansion through her own information channels. This also showed that the news hadn't leaked out, so there was no need to worry too much. But if it wasn't for this old thing who told him the secret, Madame Ma had other sources of information. Since the 2 young mistresses were outside, she was not afraid that Madame Ma would run away. Qingwen simply admitted, "Is Madame Ma referring to Wangzi and Master Xing? I don't know where Granny found out about this." Madame Ma faintly said, "You don't need to know this. Just say it. Will you do it or not?" Qingwen didn't give up and continued to ask, "Madame Ma, Master Wang's death is very strange. Most likely, it was framed by outsiders. If you let me report it to the head of the Wang family, it will inevitably lead to a dispute between the 2 families and even a war. What good will it do for you? If you want money, our Rongwa mansion also has some." Madame Ma gently tapped the crutch in her hand, and Qingwen heard a burst of shrill ghost howls. The girl screamed, and her face immediately turned pale. The old woman condescendingly looked down at Qing, one who was lying on the ground. Don't talk nonsense. You just need to tell me, will you do it or not? Qing gritted her teeth and said, Madam Ma, it's not that I'm long-winded, but I'm really worried. If Madam Ma wants to start a war between the two families, it's not enough to just rely on this news. Third young lady is resourceful and has the help of Duke Ning. How can I convince the masters of the Wang family with only my one-sided words? Third Miss only needs to insist that there is no such thing, and the Wang family can't do anything. Madam Ma faintly sneered. You don't have to worry about this. Why don't I have to worry about it? Qing Wen loudly said, if this matter doesn't succeed, the Jia family won't start a war with the Wang family. Without being restrained by the Wang family, they will definitely be able to free up their hands to deal with me. Third Miss, let's not talk about it first. Will Master Jia Su spare me? I can't escape from the blame either. If this matter doesn't succeed, will the noble one praise me? Madam Ma, Sun Ran chuckled softly, so that's the case. However, little girl, you're hiding something in your heart. Since you can think of this step, why didn't you think of that matter? Qing Wen asked blankly, what matter? Madam Ma slowly said, how did Wang Zixing's few followers die? Qing Wen's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and she almost cried out. She knew. She actually knew. She even knew about this. What was going on? Who was the one who leaked the news? Yesterday, she was entrusted by the third miss to go to the Ning Manor to find Master Jia Su. However, before she left the Rongwa Manor, she met Duke Ning on the way. When Master Jia Su heard about Wang Zixing's death, he didn't immediately rush to the scene. Instead, he brought her to the guest hall, where Wang Zixing's followers were received and killed all 4 of them. This was different from Wang Zixing, whose death was still suspicious. They really died in the hands of Master Jia Su. If this matter was reported to the Wang family and the corpses were found as evidence, Master Jia Su wouldn't be able to explain Wang Zixing's death clearly. Madam Ma even knew about this. Who was the one who leaked the news? How did she know? This matter was too terrifying. It was as if there was a pair of eyes with infinite malice in the darkness watching everything in the Rongwa Manor, taking in everyone's actions. No one could escape its gaze. Everything you did, it knew. Qing Wen's heart was filled with great fear. This fearless girl with a fiery temperament had finally developed fear. It seems that you have understood. Madam Ma said slowly, we know everything. Even Jia Su can't stop or defeat us. Now that you have such a great opportunity, you'd better seize it. After all, this is your last chance of survival. Are you still going to stay on the ship of Rongwa House and sink with it? You're still young, and your good days are still ahead. Qing Wen's face showed that she was struggling. She hesitated as if she was about to give in. She longed for more bargaining chips, promises, and proof. Who is the benefactor you're talking about? How are you going to elevate me? How can I believe that you won't burn the bridge after crossing the river? Madame Wang was already impatient. With such a great fortune in front of her, this little bitch dared to be picky, evasive, and hesitant. It was so infuriating. Madame Wang didn't know how many things she had done and how long she had waited for this glimmer of light. How could she get so easily? Thinking of this, she snapped, little bitch, you're so long-winded. You still want to talk about conditions? Do you think we have to coax you to agree? Do you think that if you don't cooperate, we can't do anything? Her eyes were like a poisonous snake as they slid over Qing Wen's body. That slender body, that white skin, that delicate face, that white jade-like neck, young, elegant, and filled with a beautiful charm, was a girl at her best. This made her heart burn with jealousy. So her smile was dyed with malice, and her tone was even more vicious. Actually, if you don't cooperate, I'll be happier. When the time comes, I'll throw you to the Wang family. In front of a group of Wang family men, you can continue to be stubborn if you have the ability. At that time, with your coquettish face and your vulgar body, what will happen to you? Maybe the Wang family men will be like the servants of Rongwa Mansion, bowing to you and treating you as a fairy in the sky. They won't even dare to touch your finger. Ha 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 ha. Qing Wen was so angry that her whole body trembled. She stared fiercely at the vicious old woman. She knew that Madame Ma was calm and cautious, so she couldn't get more information from her. So she turned to stare at Madame Wang and began to attack. "You old thing, you're a dog that bullies others." Madame Wang angrily said, "What did you say?" "I'm talking about you." Qing Wen snapped. "Ronghua Mansion has never treated you unfairly. And this is how you repay them? Everyone has their own ambitions. This is understandable. But you're a heartless thing who doesn't have many days left to live. You've been a servant for a lifetime, but now you're turning your back on your master for glory. Not only are you not ashamed, you're proud of it. You even dare to talk in front of me." Madame Wang flew into a rage. She was narrow-minded, petty, and had a strong self-esteem. She couldn't endure being despised and insulted by others, and the person who insulted her was Qing Wen, who she didn't like. How could she swallow this anger? Madame Wang angrily said, "Nonsense! Who lost their integrity in their old age? I've been loyal to my master all these years." Before she could finish, she was interrupted by Madame Ma. "Be careful with your words." Qing Wen became more and more angry, and loudly said, "Then why did you jump out now? You're just a dog who bullies the weak and fears the strong. What else is there to say? If it was a few years ago, when a young master was still alive, an old dog like you wouldn't even dare to let out half a fart. But at this time, you bully the orphans of Ronghua Mansion. Your conscience has been eaten by a dog." Now that she mentioned the late young master, she was scheming, in order to remind the young mistresses who were eavesdropping outside to take action. In addition, she hated Madame Wang very much, so she deliberately mentioned the young master to arouse the anger of the two young mistresses, who knew that Madame Wang would be scolded by her, and her self-esteem would be greatly impacted. She was eager to show off, so she blurted out without thinking, "Young master? You little wench, you don't know, that year when your second master ran away from home, who was the one who used the strength?" Madame Ma sternly said, "Madame Wang." Qing Wen opened her eyes wide, as if she didn't expect Madame Wang to say such words. She lost her voice and said, What did you say?" Madame Wang felt that she had misspoken. She met Madame Ma's cold eyes and braced herself to say, "What's wrong with saying it? He has been dead for 2 years. Madame Ma was no longer as calm as before. She gritted her teeth and said, "You idiot." Madame Wang was scolded like this, but she became stubborn. She straightened her neck and said, "What's wrong with saying it? Ronghua Mansion is almost finished. Who cares about this? Who can still say it? Are you afraid that this little girl will leak the news? Since that's the case, I'll just kill her. You know Taoist magic, so you have many ways. Throw her to the Wang family, and after using her, just kill her. You don't need to let her live." Qing Wen turned a deaf ear to these words. Her mind was full of Madame Wang's words just now. She struggled hard and shouted, "What are you talking about? What's going on? What are you talking about?" Madame Wang's eyes became malicious. "It has nothing to do with you, little girl. When you go to the netherworld, ask your young master in person." She turned to look at Madame Ma. "Just use Taoist magic. She doesn't seem to be willing to cooperate." Madame Ma glared at her fiercely, and her hands made a gesture. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. "Say it. Why don't you say it? Continue." Chapter 766. Speak, why don't you speak? Suddenly, a man's voice sounded in the study. His tone was indifferent, without any emotional fluctuation. There was neither curiosity nor anger. The voice sounded out of nowhere and seemed to come from all directions. She couldn't tell the direction and couldn't determine the source. The doors and windows of the study were all locked. Looking around, there were only old tables and chairs. There was no one at all. The voice came from nowhere and disappeared after sound. It was like an illusion. Mother Wang and Madame Ma had ulterior motives. They were shocked when they heard the voice. They looked at each other and saw the uncertainty in each other's eyes. Since both of them heard it, it was definitely not an illusion. Granny Wang's face was ferocious, and a dagger slipped out of her sleeve. She locked her eyes on the cabinet on the side of the study, which was one of the few places in the room where people could hide. She walked towards the cabinet quietly and shouted, "Who is it? Who is talking? Come out! Come out!" Before her voice died away, her old and thin body suddenly burst out with a speed that was inconsistent with her age. She rushed to the cabinet with a fierce momentum. The sword was shining. She nailed it into the cabinet and quickly pulled it out. The sword was like stars. In a flash, she had stabbed 7 times. This move of 7 stars gathering was exquisite and sophisticated. She didn't expect this woman to have such good swordsmanship. But there was no blood on the sword. Obviously, she stabbed nothing. There was no feeling of the blade cutting into flesh. Mother Wong's heart sank. She held the sword to protect herself and kicked the cabinet open. There was no one inside. The voice sounded again. The tone was calm and cold without any emotion. It directly sounded in her ears. Second Master Bao ran away from home. Who is the one who made the effort? Mother Wong shouted and pulled back her sword. She heard clearly that the person who spoke was behind her, but the sword still cut nothing. It was as if she had seen a ghost. She was a little panicked. Whether the person who spoke was a human or a ghost, it was obviously not someone she could deal with. She held the sword tightly and stared at Madame Ma. Why don't you do something? Where is your Taoist magic? Go and find him. Get rid of him. You. Before she could finish her words, she sensed that something was wrong. Cold sweat broke out all of a sudden. Qing Wan, who was lying on the ground, the little hoof who had been scolding him fiercely, now had her head tilted to the side and her eyes closed. She had fainted without making a sound. As for Madame Ma, looking at Madame Ma's appearance, Wang Mama's pupils suddenly shrank. Her hand that was holding the sword was shaking, and her body was also shaking uncontrollably. Granny Ma didn't die, wasn't injured, wasn't attacked, and didn't even move. But looking at Granny Ma like that, Granny Wang couldn't help but feel terrified, because at this moment, the person she respectfully called Fairy, this strange person with strange Taoist techniques and remarkable abilities, this person who was sent by her master to come to Rongbao Mansion to cooperate with them to carry out the mission, no longer had her usual aloof arrogance. Madame Ma showed a look of fear, extreme shock, as if she had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. So much so that she forgot that she still had strange and terrifying Taoist techniques. She was so scared that she didn't dare to move, or rather, she felt that in front of this fear, her Taoist techniques were nothing. But this wasn't the most important thing. This wasn't the reason why Wang Mama felt fear. What made Wang Mama fearful was that Madame Ma's eyes fell behind her. She looked behind her, looked at something, and then showed an expression of extreme fear. She was almost numb with fear. She didn't dare to speak, didn't dare to move, and her mind was blank. Behind her, Wang Mama's hair stood on end in an instant. What was behind her? She was frozen in place. She didn't dare to move. She felt an infinite chill at the back of her neck. She didn't dare to turn her head. Cold sweat slid down her forehead. She desperately turned her eyes. She wanted to use the corner of her eyes to spy. She trembled and breathed quickly. She clenched her teeth again and again. An inexplicable fear rose in her heart. Qing Wen fainted on the ground. Madame Ma didn't dare to move. Wang Mama was also frozen in place. They didn't even dare to speak. It was as if they were being stared at by a fierce beast. If they moved, they would be bitten by an earth-shattering beast. What was behind her? Wang Mama held a dagger in her hand. The weapon and martial arts gave her courage. She wanted to use all her strength to slash behind her, but this idea disappeared without a trace. It seemed that Madame Ma's eyes had shattered her will to resist. Her heart was trembling. Her instincts as a martial artist were screaming. All kinds of fear wrapped around her heart, stripping away the warmth of her soul. She realized at this moment that this was a strong enemy that she couldn't resist. Who was it? Why was even Madame Ma afraid? Wang Mama shivered. She suddenly remembered that this was the study of her son-in-law, Jiaxi. He had died on the battlefield more than 10 years ago. Could it be that his spirit had appeared today? Could it be that his ghost had appeared? Was that why it was so illusory and untouchable? Was that why Madame Ma was afraid? Her lips trembled. She wanted to ask, but she couldn't make any sound. Her throat seemed to be filled with lead, and she couldn't say anything. She didn't speak. The people behind her didn't speak, and Madame Ma didn't speak either. Time seemed to stop, and the silence tortured Wang Mama's soul. She couldn't stand this silence any longer. Wang Mama clenched her fists, her neck turning to the side. What was behind her? She wanted to see clearly. She wanted to see. She was going crazy. She at least wanted to know. As she wished, she saw it. She saw behind her. There was a person standing behind her. It was a person. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't Jiaxi. It was a young man with a strange hairstyle, wearing strange clothes, and a very calm expression. At this moment, it was as if 5 bolts of lightning had struck her. Wang Mama felt that winter had come at this moment. Cold, very cold. This room was very cold. It was also very cold outside. The world was very cold, so cold that it pierced her bones. She understood at this moment that fear had color and temperature. It was a bone-chilling gray. She also understood at this moment why Madame Ma showed such a fearful expression, because it was something even more terrifying than seeing Jiaxi's ghost. Old Madame Ma recognized this person. Of course, she also recognized him, although they hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years. Although the person in her memory was just a young and naive boy, Wang Mama recognized him the moment she saw his face. She couldn't be wrong. After the shock, there was endless fear. An unprecedented horror struck her heart. How could it be him? How could it be him? How could he appear here? Wasn't he already dead? Then she heard an emotionless voice repeat, "Speak. Why aren't you speaking?" Fear overwhelmed her reason and shattered her heart's defenses. In an instant, it captured her superficial soul. Nanny Wang opened her mouth and let out a hysterical scream. The next moment, a wave of air roared. Before she could scream, her mouth was blocked by the violent wave of air. There was a roar in her ears, and a strong wind surged in the small room. Her body was swept up into the air. In a daze, she saw the black fog rolled up by Madame Ma suddenly shatter, like a fierce wind extinguishing a flame. A powerful force that she couldn't understand ruled the room, sweeping and raging. She felt a stabbing pain all over her body, as if countless invisible swords stretched out from nothingness and slashed around her. In a moment, she would be turned into meat paste. Then, thousands of sharp swords ruthlessly twisted in her heart. It was as if her soul was being cut into pieces. Granny Wang's body trembled violently, and she let out a shrill scream. She spat out a large mouthful of blood, and the blood mist disappeared in the air. She felt as if thousands of knives were stirring in her body. She believed that the torture of thousands of cuts was nothing more than this. She wanted to struggle and roll away, but an invisible force bound her limbs, making her unable to move an inch. She could only feel pain and anger. It wasn't her anger, but the anger of another person. The anger turned into a substance, filling the room and flowing on her skin. In the air she breathed, she could feel the anger of this person because the thousands of blades raging in her body were the manifestation of his anger. She even knew the cause of his anger. She screamed and cried out in pain. Despair, pain, and fear made her summon up the last of her strength and beg for mercy. Spare me, second master." What responded to her was an even more blazing fury and accompanying torment. The violent sword chi converged into a terrible storm, dancing wildly in the whole room, tearing the body and soul of Madame Ma and Wang Mama. This was not a punishment, nor was it an interrogation, but a thorough torture and venting of anger. It was just a furious soul venting his bottomless anger, without any rationality. At this moment, Shui Baochai broke out of the window against the sword chi and shouted, "Husband, stop!" Sun Lang turned around, the killing intent and fury in his eyes, almost making the girl unable to recognize him. She couldn't recognize that the incarnation of fury was actually her beloved husband. Sister Bao subconsciously took a step back. Sun Lang's expression became clear, and the anger in his eyes subsided a little, but he still looked at Shui Baochai. The girl quietly clenched her fists, her nails digging into her flesh. The pain made her dispel the fear and hesitation in her mind. She said, If this goes on, they will die. Sun Lang took a deep breath, and the storm in the room stopped. All the furniture and decorations were swept to pieces by the roaring sword Qi, but the dying Madame Ma and Wang Mama were still suspended in the air, bound by an invisible force. Their bodies hung down, their faces pale, and their eyes full of fear. Sun Lang stood in front of them, and his voice was terrifyingly calm. Speak. Chapter 767. Speak. Even now, Sun Lang's tone was incomparably calm. However, everyone present knew what kind of raging flames were hidden within those calm words. Not only did Mother Wang and Mother Ma tremble, but even Xue Baochai and Lin Daiyu, who came in behind, could not help but shudder. The two girls involuntarily clasped their hands together. It was not only Mother Wang and Mother Ma who were afraid, but also them. The person in front of them made them feel strange and afraid. They were acquainted with their husband, and they admired his martial arts skills that allowed him to emerge victorious in every battle. They adored his magnanimity for the benefit of the country, and they fell into his gentleness and easygoing love that was accompanied by respect. In their impression, their husband was an indomitable hero, a legend like the martial saint that the soldiers swore to follow. He was like the sun in everyone's eyes, always emitting an inextinguishable light and heat, shining on everyone's body and warming everyone's soul. In adversity and even despair, he was always by everyone's side like a flag. He was always smiling, as if he could get along well with everyone. He had endless stories to tell and endless friends to make. He was always smiling, always optimistic. It was as if there was no negative emotion in him. There was no hatred, no anger in the hearts of Lin Daiyu and Xue Baochai. Their husband was like this. He was always smiling, believing that the world was beautiful and that nothing could shake him. It was because love could blind one's eyes the most. In their hearts, the image of their beloved was so lofty and beautiful. In these 2 years of yearning, it had been beautified to the extreme. It was also because of this that it formed a sharp contrast with the current situation, causing them to feel extremely shocked. Perhaps at this moment, they really realized how cruel the battle of the Great Bear Mountain that was hidden under countless fog was. It was so cruel that it was beyond their imagination. Because of that battle, a person had changed forever. The two girls held hands and could feel the warmth and sweat of each other's hands. They looked at the back of Sun Lang, and their hearts were filled with shock and pain, as well as unsuppressible pity and sadness. No wonder when they reunited 2 years later, they found that there was a thick barrier between them and their husband. This was only because they had never truly understood their husband's heart. The two girls' hearts were filled with thoughts, and Sun Lang was waiting for an answer. He originally thought that he had experienced many vicissitudes of life, and had reached a transcendent state where he would not be pleased by external things and would not be sad for himself. But he was wrong. He still had things that he was extremely obsessed with. The battle of the Great Bear Mountain had left too many marks and scars on him. These were his obsessions, things that changed his life. And this answer was the starting point of everything. He originally thought that bastard had sneaked out of the house himself. So when he heard Mother Wang proudly show off, his soul almost froze. If that bastard of the Jia family did not seek death and run out of the house, then he would not have participated in the Holy Sword plan. If he did not participate in that bullshit plan, then he would not have died. If he did not die, then Empress and the others would not have thought of ways to bring him back from the dead. Instead, by a freak combination of factors, Sun Lang was summoned to this world. This was the source of all the pain, the beginning of all the stories. He had been robbed of everything, and another fate was imposed on him. All of this originated from this. How could he calm down? No matter who the mastermind was, no matter who secretly used the power, no matter what the conspiracy was, no matter what the other party's goal was, he would cut the mastermind into pieces, grind his bones, and scatter his ashes. Sun Lang's tone was incomparably calm, but all of the anger, killing intent, violence, and hatred were fused into these two simple words. He said indifferently, "Speak." Mother Wong's hair was disheveled. Her face was pale, and the fear on her face could not be dispersed. Looking at Sun Lang, it was as if she was looking at a monster. Her body and mind were greatly damaged, and at this time she was shrouded in an indescribable fear. Of course, she collapsed. This old woman who had been arrogant in front of Qing when suddenly burst into tears and began to cry. If she was not suspended in the air by an invisible force, she would have immediately hugged Sun Lang's leg and cried. She cried loudly, Second Master, I'm Mother Wong. Please spare this old thing's life. I was only following orders. It was her. She desperately moved her body towards Mother Ma. Her face was covered in tears and snot, and there was a stench coming from her crotch. It seemed that under her fear, she was so scared that she peed and shit. Mother Wong loudly shouted, It was Mother Ma who ordered me to do this. I'm only a servant. I don't know anything. If she told me to do it, then I had to do it. In fact, I didn't want to do it. Second Master, after you ran away from home and disappeared, I regretted it to death. I don't know how many times I cried, and how many times I went to Buddha to beg. When the news came back that you became a general, I was so happy. Second Master, I am Mother Wong. You have to remember my kindness. She talked endlessly, and then begged for mercy. She seemed to be completely captured by fear, and all the defenses in her heart were destroyed. This was normal. She was originally a vulgar and lowly person who bullied the weak and feared the strong. She felt that the Jia family was declining day by day, so she showed off her arrogance. She felt more at ease to cooperate with Madame Ma to plot against the Rongwa mansion. She could also show off in front of Qingwen. However, her nature of bullying the weak and fearing the strong did not change. When Second Master Bao, who was supposed to be dead, appeared with such a terrifying martial arts skill that could change the color of heaven and earth, how could she not be afraid? Her life was the most important thing. She stole a glance at Sun Lang's expression, but found that his eyes were incomparably deep, and she couldn't tell what he was thinking. Mother Wong felt more and more uncertain, and the fear continued to spread. She said sadly, Second Master, good Second Master, just treat me as a fart and let me go. This old bastard doesn't have many days left to live. Seeing that I used to serve Rongwa Manor wholeheartedly, please spare me this time. Just treat it as doing good deeds, okay? I did something wrong and deceived you to go to the north to join the army, but this is not a bad thing. It was a matter of life and death. The old woman cheered up and spat everywhere. She tried her best to persuade the young master to spare her life. If you don't go, you will only be the Second Master Bao of the Rongwa mansion and be treasured by the old lady and the madams. Although you don't have to worry about food and clothing in your life, it is just like that. How can it be compared to now? You have no shortage of martial arts, meritorious service, and official position. You will rise to the top. She blinked her eyes and begged, I don't have good intentions, so I don't dare to claim credit. But at least I have worked hard. If it weren't for me, you would still be in the Rongwa mansion. Now your martial arts are excellent, and your meritorious service is unparalleled. When you come back this time, you will definitely be able to revitalize your family and make your ancestors proud. Your deceased parents will be very happy to see you like this. While Mammy Wong was talking, she was paying attention to the young master's expression. She had experience. If she could make Second Master Bao's expression change, she would have a chance to live. I've mentioned your parents and ancestors. No matter what, you have to move a little, right? The expression of the Second Master Bao did change. He raised his head. His eyes met with Mother Wong's. Mother Wong saw that the ferocious and tyrannical cold light flashed from the eyes of the Second Master Bao. What's going on? Did I say something wrong? This was the last complete thought of Mother Wong. She disintegrated inch by inch. It was as if she had been ground into ashes by an invisible knife. There was no blood because her flesh, blood, and bones had all turned into ashes. It was as if Granny Wong was not a living person with flesh and blood. This was undoubtedly a painful process. Granny Wong let out an inaudible scream and wail. It was as if there were many ferocious beasts in the void, gnawing at her bit by bit. This way of dying was strange and tragic. As Sun Lang's back was facing Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu, the two girls did not see the change of expression on Sun Lang's face. They only saw that Mother Wang collapsed after begging. The miserable wailing before death indicated that this was not a peaceful death. Lin Daiyu's face turned pale, and she almost vomited. Shui Baochai became more emotional. She could accept killing. Mother Wang betrayed her master for glory. There was no harm in killing her, but why did she have to torture and kill her in such a way? She was shocked, worried, and even frightened, because she knew how fragile human beings were. The executioner would be incomparably indifferent to life. The soldiers on the battlefield would gradually become violent and extreme, and the people in charge of torture in the government offices and secret organizations would have long been mentally distorted. Killing was killing, and torturing was torturing. Killing was only to end the enemy's life, but torturing was to perish together with the enemy at the cost of one's soul, rolling into the bottomless abyss together. She could not let her husband be like this. She could not let her husband be swallowed by hatred. She rushed forward and shouted, "Husband!" Sun Lang suddenly turned around and said sternly, "Shut up." Shui Baochai seemed to be hit by a heavy hammer. Her face turned pale, and she said in a daze, "Husband." Sun Lang also came to himself. His eyes flickered and his hands trembled slightly. He seemed to realize what he had done. But the human heart was not made of stone. How could he be calm all the time, let alone this kind of thing? How could he calm down? At least now, he wanted an answer. He only wanted an answer. Sun Lang took a deep breath and calmed down. He avoided Shui Baochai's eyes and whispered, "Don't talk. Don't talk." Then he turned around and came to Madame Ma, saying, "It's your turn. There are some things that she doesn't know. You know them. Do you want to say it yourself? Or do I ask you to say it?" Madame Ma suddenly sneered in a low voice. "Okay, I'll say it, I'll say it." Chapter 768. She was suspended in the air, her life in the hands of others. She had just suffered a painful punishment, and her companion had died in an extremely strange and cruel way. Madame Ma should have been extremely frightened and even collapsed, but she didn't. She was terrifyingly calm. Even when Wang Mama crazily begged for mercy and pushed all the blame to her, Madame Ma didn't have any reaction or expression. She just hung in the air and didn't say a word. At this time, in the face of Sun Lang's cold inquiry, she gave a sneer. Madame Ma raised her head. Her face was pale, and traces of distortion could still be seen on her face, which was the remnant of pain. Just now, Sun Lang was furious, and his thoughts came from his heart, and his strength moved with his thoughts. His anger condensed into solid sword chi, and along with his anger and hatred, rushed toward Madame Ma and Wang Mama. The pain they suffered could be imagined, even if they subconsciously controlled their strength to avoid death. Even if it didn't last long, Wang Mama had already destroyed all the will and determination to resist and completely collapsed her heart. Madame Ma also suffered the same pain, and even more, but she didn't collapse. She didn't beg for mercy. She raised her head, looked at Sun Lang, and sneered, and even a provocative light flashed in her eyes. Suddenly, she gave a twisted smile. The smile was very cold. There was no fear in the smile, no emotion in the smile. She whispered, "What should I say?" Sun Lang stared at her. He suddenly realized that another thing was out of control. Madame Ma was laughing and sneering. She looked at Sun Lang, with provocation and mockery in her eyes. She seemed to be muttering to herself, but also seemed to be whispering. "By the way, I want to say hello to you on behalf of my master," Sun Lang said indifferently. "Who is your master? What do you think?" Madame Ma's smile was full of malice. She smiled serene. "By the way, my master wants me to tell you. How long are you going to play this boring role-playing game? You are a—" Before she finished, Sun Lang chopped down with his palm. His palm was like a knife, chopping down from top to bottom, from the top of his head. Madame Ma's head was smashed into pieces in an instant. She was turned into ashes by the 7 planets' spirit energy and dissipated in the air. Then it was her body, her limbs. Then A bright ball of light bloomed from Madame Ma's body. Sun Lang's pupils suddenly shrank. She wasn't human. The ball of light instantly blazed, as though it wanted to do something. Sun Lang abruptly raised his hand and pressed down. An invisible force squeezed out from all directions, binding the ball of light in the air, compressing its light and limiting its size. Finally, he abruptly clenched his hand, and the ball of light scattered into countless specks of light, completely dissipating from the world. Old Madame Ma and old Madame Wang had disappeared from this world forever. The room fell into a dead silence. Sun Lang didn't retract his hand. It was still frozen in midair, maintaining the action of annihilating the ball of light. He was like a silent statue. His face was expressionless, and his eyes were heavy. No one could tell what he was thinking. Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu stood behind, looking at their husband's back. At this moment, the back in front of them was so unfamiliar. They didn't understand. They didn't understand anything. They didn't understand. They didn't understand anything. They didn't understand why he was so angry. They didn't understand why he was so tyrannical. They didn't understand why he suddenly killed Madame Ma when he clearly wanted to ask her a question. In fact, it wasn't that they didn't understand. They just didn't dare to understand. What was a boring role-playing game? What was the unfinished sentence? What was after the word, you are a... What was the risk? What was the risk? 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 Shui Baochai held Sister Lin's hand tightly. Her heart was beating very fast. She was at a loss and terrified. Even 2 years before she heard that her husband had died in battle, she wasn't as terrified as she was now. She wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Her mouth was dry, and her body was trembling slightly. She even wanted to run away from here without looking back. She would rather stay in Mingzhou and not come back. Sun Lang slowly turned his head. His face was expressionless and so calm that it was frightening. His voice seemed to come from the horizon. I think if it was just Granny Wang and Madame Ma, they wouldn't be able to do that, right? Isn't Granny Wang Madame Xing's maid? Madame Xing probably knows something, right? And Madame Ma, didn't she stay in Jinling for many years? Since she had been disloyal for more than 10 years, she must have left some clues. The two girls didn't know what Sun Lang was talking about, and they didn't know why he was talking about this. However, as Sun Lang spoke, he suddenly laughed to himself. His tone was full of self-mockery and helplessness. Wait, I'm so angry that I'm confused. Why go through so much trouble? Sun Lang retracted his right hand and rubbed his face. He blinked hard and said to himself, why ask a small fry about this kind of thing? Lin Daiyu said timidly. Brother. Sun Lang didn't seem to hear her. The moment Madame Ma died, he understood a lot of things. However, it didn't matter. Madame Ma wasn't a swindler with evil Taoist magic and wandering among the rich and powerful families in Jinling. She wasn't a vulgar mortal, and she wasn't the kind of person who would retreat, compromise, and yield because of fear. But it didn't matter. Madame Ma's death should be a trap. She had extraordinary power, and she wasn't even completely human. She served her master, and she knew a lot about me, and she provoked me. But it didn't matter. I had to kill Madame Ma. I'm afraid her master had this plan. This was an open and above-board scheme. Her master had calculated everything, including my thoughts and my nature. Madame Ma was a chess piece to be sacrificed. Because of that ball of light, her death must be an obvious signal. This was the greatest value of her existence. But it didn't matter. After Madame Ma's death, her master would probably know the news, and the plan would succeed. Only I could kill Madame Ma completely. In this way, my location would be exposed, and they would know that I appeared in Summer Province. I left Qin Province, and they would finally get the exact news. But it didn't matter. No matter what, Madame Ma, the game with the Imperial Court, exposing my location, or Roma Mansion, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Who the F***CK cared about this? Who? He. Mom. Here. Who? Here. Is. Sun Lang gritted his teeth. His expression looked like he was smiling, but there was not the slightest hint of a smile. It looked like he was crying, but he could not shed a single tear. He seemed very surprised. He whispered, "What am I doing here?" It turned out that Jia Zizai didn't run away from home because he was young and reckless. It was a sinister scheme that had been planned for a long time. All of this led to the beginning of the nightmare. From then on, everything was taken away from him. His fate was changed. He left his family, his parents. He should have lived an ordinary and peaceful life in the beautiful and peaceful world he lived in. This was an obsession that he could never let go of. It was a knot in his heart that he could never untie. Sun Lang originally thought that he had clearly sorted out all the kindness and resentment in the past 2 years. There was a perpetrator for every grievance and a debtor for every debt. None of them could escape. But who would have thought that he would hear such news today? The shock and anger in his heart could be imagined. There was actually another story at the origin of the story. This was too ridiculous. He didn't know why, but he just wanted to laugh. It was funny. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was teasing him. Fate. He began to laugh. He shook his head, laughed, and slowly retreated. He looked at the 2 girls in front of him. There was sadness, helplessness, and deep fatigue in his smile. After experiencing so many things, Sun Lang, was still human. His heart hadn't turned into a piece of iron. His emotions hadn't disappeared. He had people he cared about, people he respected, and people he loved. People would always compromise or even sacrifice for more important things. Even so, but people would get tired. He was human, so it was the same. He looked at the 2 girls and said lightly, "I'm sorry." Then he turned and walked to the door. Lin Daiyu seemed to be frightened. She didn't even know what had happened. She didn't know why it had become like this. As if she wanted to vent all the anger and confusion in her heart, Sister Bao said loudly, "You hide the truth and don't want to tell anyone. Do you want to bear it by yourself? This is very good. You are very gentle. You are very kind. But since you have decided to do this, why do you want to give up halfway? Can't hold on? Are you tired of it? Then you can just leave behind a word of sorry and throw everyone to the side to fend for themselves. Then you will carry the barrel of explosives and die together with them." Sun Lang's eyes gradually turned cold, but Shue Baochai was not afraid. She met Sun Lang's eyes. She questioned and interrogated. This was something she had always wanted to say, but she had always buried it in her heart. Until now, she would not be happy if she did not say it. "Do you think you are very gentle, very kind, very responsible? Do you think you'll be happy if you carry all the sorrow and pain on your own and leave the best for us? Do you think we will be happy if you keep us company every day? You think too much of yourself." She cried and said loudly, "It's not like that. We are actually not happy. Not only me and Pin, but also Ms. Zhang, Miss Zhao, and even General Yunlong, they are also not happy. They are only leaving their best, smiling faces for you. How can we be happy?" Sister Bao took 2 steps forward, as if she wanted to touch Sun Lang's face, but her hand stopped in midair. She looked at this strange, yet familiar face, crying and laughing at the same time. She murmured, "Because you're not happy. If you don't laugh, how can we laugh? Why can't you understand this logic?" Sun Lang's expression finally changed. Sister Bao's expression was dazed, as if she was reminiscing, as if she was talking in her sleep. "Why can't you understand? Girls like to laugh, but sometimes they also like to cry, whether it's crying or laughing. The most important thing is you. Laughing with you is true happiness. Crying with you is also very, very good. Whether it's crying or laughing, you are the most important thing, but what about you? You do everything you can to make us laugh, but you hide in the dark and cry. We know you are crying, but we don't know why you are crying. You don't want to tell us, so we don't even know how to grieve with you. We can only let our imaginations run wild. As for you, you are still thinking of ways to make us laugh. How can we laugh?" Sister Bao cried. "Are you stupid?" Chapter 769. In the study, there was silence. They didn't know what to say. Sun Lang stood there in a daze, looking at Shue Baochai, who was crying like a pear blossom in the rain. Sister Bao was simply venting all the negative emotions in her heart. She wasn't an otherworldly fairy. and she didn't have a heart that could see through the world. Maybe she was in the past, but how difficult was it to understand the word love? It caused a fairy to fall into the mortal world, and all kinds of anger and doubt were born from it. Because she cared, she was persistent. The person in front of her was the only person she cared about and was persistent about. Love was deeply rooted and would not change until death. Because of this extreme love, she was worried about personal gains and losses. She used her entire life to love someone, but the other party held back and hid things from her. This was originally unbearable, even if what was hidden and reserved was actually painful and sad memories. Even so, this was not what she wanted. She wanted to know. Because they were husband and wife, she wanted to know that whether it was painful or beautiful, they had to bear and face it together. Cry, laugh, anything was fine. Only in this way could they be husband and wife. She was going to be this man's wife, not his pet. Just like a cat, it was fed and caressed by him every day. It meowed comfortably, acted coquettishly, and rubbed against him. Just like that, day after day passed. It didn't understand anything and didn't know anything. Only when he came back would it greet him with a smile and play with him mindlessly. When he wasn't around, it would lie on the shelf and lick the fur on its paws out of boredom. It didn't know what he was doing, what he saw in his dreams every day, why he was sad, and why he was happy, even if it was a peaceful, beautiful, and peaceful life, even if she was taken good care of by him, even if there was only light in her life, even if he blocked all the darkness outside. This was not what she wanted. She wanted to be this person's wife. She wanted to face all the rain and sunshine together. Unfortunately, he never understood. Why don't you understand? We've already agreed that we can wait. 10 years, 20 years, we're willing to wait. We'll wait until you understand everything. We'll wait until you let down your guard. We'll wait until you completely trust us. Shwe Baochai looked at the person in front of her. Her voice was very soft, as if she was afraid of disturbing something. She said softly, "But we've already agreed. Why aren't you willing to wait? Why?" Sun Lang was speechless. He didn't know what to say. Logic didn't make sense, especially at such a time, especially between a man and a woman. He didn't know how to respond. This was different from the last time. Jia Sherdao came aggressively, accusing him of being silent and irresponsible. He accused him of disappearing without a trace, causing those who cared about him to be immersed in sorrow and pain. Therefore, Sun Lang could fight back with an even fiercer aura. "Since you want the truth, then I'll give you the truth." But it was different this time. It was about feelings, promises, and feelings. The person Shwe Baochai was questioning was the person she believed to be her sweetheart. It had nothing to do with blood or identity. She just wanted the truth. She just didn't want to be hidden anymore. It was different from Jia Sherdao. She had already prepared herself and realized just how cruel and heavy the truth Sun Lang was hiding was. But even so, she still wanted to know, because she wanted to share and face this pain with her husband. Sun Lang said slowly, "Where do you want to start?" Hearing this, Shwe Baochai's expression didn't change. She seemed to have calmed down, or rather, her heart was cold. She looked at Sun Lang and said calmly, "Before this, who are you talking to me now?" Sun Lang was stunned. Before he could speak, Shwe Baochai continued, "If you're talking to me as a superior in the military, then there's no need to explain. You're in a high position, and you don't have to explain anything to a lowly general." Was this a fight? Sun Lang was about to open his mouth, but Sister Bao stopped him again. "With your identity, you don't have to explain anything. You're a master beyond this world. Of course, your words and actions are only for your thoughts. You don't have to consider my thoughts." Sun Lang had already calmed down at this time. Or rather, he was too calm. This was human. This was a man. For example, when his sexual desire was high, he would even want to penetrate the keyhole, not to mention the swords and guns. But after that, he would fall into a state of self-loathing and feel that he was a hopeless pervert. In fact, this was just a normal physiological desire. At this moment, Sun Lang was in a state of self-reflection after masturbating. Just now, in his anger, he almost lost his mind again, and even his soul was almost controlled by hatred. But Shue Baochai stopped him, and she stopped him in a way that he did not expect. She also gave him a blow and a shout. Now that he had calmed down, he fell into deep thought. He felt that he had done something wrong, probably, or maybe wrong, because he couldn't refute Sister Bao's question. An otaku didn't understand feelings. An otaku knew even less about people than King Arthur. An otaku only knew how to reason. When they couldn't reason, the otaku was completely at a disadvantage. Therefore, an otaku couldn't argue with a girlfriend because girls were unreasonable. Of course, this argument was hypothetical because an otaku didn't have a girlfriend. In short, a weeping girl talked about feelings with you. What did you do? You must be desperate, right? This was probably the case. After Sun Lang calmed down, he slowly felt guilty, especially when he felt that he was unreasonable. So, it was understandable to give in a little, right? Sun Lang thought so. Although it was a bit shameful to say it, this was indeed a special situation. Facing Sister Bao's temper, Sun Lang's face darkened and he stuttered a little. Of course it's your— Sister Bao was expressionless. I said if it's your boss, you don't have to say it. Sun Lang was annoyed and said loudly, it's your future husband, boyfriend, fiancé, lover, engaged. In short, it's the person who will marry you in the future. Lin Daiyu hurriedly turned her head to the side and took a deep breath. No one paid attention to her. Shue Baochai's face was still cold and frosty. She said coldly, is it? I just thought you wanted me to be a widow again. Sun Lang felt a little overwhelmed and said with a smile, how could it be? How could it be? Sister Bao said lightly, you yelled at me before and told me to shut up. Sun Lang sighed and said, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I reflected that there was a problem with my attitude. She said again, you suddenly threw a tantrum and killed people. You even wanted to wash your hands of it. It looked like you wanted to leave us behind and kill your way into the capital. Sun Lang looked more and more depressed. It was a moment of impulse, a moment of impulse. Shue Baochai said, it was a moment of impulse this time. What about next time? Do you want to continue to be on tenterhooks? Sun Lang gave her a thumbs up. Don't worry, I definitely won't. I've already realized that the other party used Madame Ma as bait and ordered her to say those words to provoke me. I'm afraid she was hoping that I would explode on the spot. Since I figured this out, how could I let her have her way? Who knew that after hearing this? Not only did Sister Bao not feel relieved, but her face became even colder. Sister Lin also hurriedly turned back and winked at Sun Lang. And what did I say wrong? Isn't it like this? This kind of reasonable answer fully proves that I won't do it again. Isn't it more convincing than any promises and vows? Why is she angry again? Shue Baochai said coldly. So it's like this? It seems that you are a wise and cautious person. In that case, we don't need to worry about it. I said too much before. Sun Lang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What's wrong now? It's just that the willful and awkward me is throwing a tantrum. Sister Bao said lightly, all women in the world have this kind of nature. The so-called virtuous and kind is just a pretense. Sun Lang sighed. Don't you want to hear about my affairs? Then let's start now. But the atmosphere is a bit strange now. Forget it. I've already told you once. This time I won't hold a deep grudge. Before he finished speaking, he felt two awl-like eyes staring at him from the opposite side. Sister Bao's calm voice raised 3 degrees. You've already told me once? Sun Lang's heart skipped a beat. Whoa. A slip of the tongue. What should I do? What should I do? Wait. What's wrong with me? I just told Gu Xiangdao. Zhang Xian chuckled dryly. Back in Qin Prefecture, I told Xiangdao about it. You know, when he received the news, he immediately ran over to the Bai clan fort to mock me. I couldn't hold myself back, so I told him. Zhang Xian paused for a moment. If a woman became emotional, she would be the most unreasonable creature in the world. Especially a woman like Sister Bao, who is usually sensible, gentle, and virtuous. Once she lost her temper, it would really be a disaster. She would be jealous of anything. So that's how it is. Indeed, I was thinking too much. It's my wishful thinking to share the burden with you. Now it seems that it's actually not necessary. Your brother can help you. Sun Lang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You think too much. It's because Gu Xiangdao is a man that I told him this. Because men have to bear some things, he has to get used to this kind of... Before he finished speaking, Shui Baochai said coldly, "Those things you guarded against us to death, but you were willing to open the door to Gu Xiangdao. It turns out that all this time, you two brothers have been treating us like fools and kept us in the dark about everything." Enough, Sun Lang suddenly shouted. Sister Lin was so scared that she trembled, and Sister Bao, who was going on a rampage, also stopped talking. Sun Lang looked at Shui Baochai and said in a low voice, "That night, after Jia Sherdao heard it, he almost went crazy and vomited blood and fainted on the spot. Do you think that's a fairy tale? If you want to hear it, okay, I can tell you. Anyway, I've already torn open the old wound once, and it doesn't matter if I tear it open again. Anyway, it just happened not long ago, and it hasn't scabbed yet. I don't care, no matter how painful it is, it's already painful enough." Sister Bao's face changed slightly. "But you, what are you doing now?" Sun Lang sighed. "Don't you want to know? Don't you want to hear it? What were you doing just now? Are you done?" Shui Baochai pursed her lips and stared at him, as if she couldn't accept it for a moment and didn't want to weaken her momentum. Sun Lang glanced at her. "Then you don't want to hear it. Okay, that's it." He simply turned around and walked towards the door. His back view looked so dispirited that it was almost as if he had given up. Seeing that he was about to push the door open and leave, Shui Baochai's heart quivered. She just felt that she had to let her husband deeply understand his previous mistakes, and saw Sun Lang, who had always been domineering, look weak and timid. She felt that it was funny, so she couldn't help but do a few things. Who knew that too much was as bad as not enough? She actually provoked this donkey to stumble again. She was anxious and subconsciously said, "Husband." There was a soft thud. It was the sound of the door latch sliding. But before that, the door latch had been pulled open, so now it was closed. Sun Lang turned around and smiled innocently. "Huh, I'm just going to open the door first. After all, this is a confidential matter. Don't let outsiders in and hear it." Shui Baochai's face became completely cold. The smile on Sun Lang's face became awkward, but not impolite. He seemed to be aware of the delicate situation, so he tried to make up for it. "Wait, you just made a fool of me, and I made a fool of you. It's fair. We don't owe each other anything. So, give me some face, and let's talk about it." Shui Baochai expressionlessly went to pick up the unconscious Qingwen and came to Sun Lang. She said lightly, "Excuse me, I have to settle this girl down." Sun Lang said with a smile, "Isn't this boring?" Sister Bao didn't say anything. She carried Qingwen and bumped into Sun Lang. In the past 2 years, Sun Lang had developed a conditioned reflex. He was able to avoid contact with a woman's body at any time, any place, and any angle. Seeing Shui Baochai carrying Qingwen over, he had no choice but to dodge to the side. Otherwise, there would be a flood. Shui Baochai was about to open the door, but Sun Lang stretched out his finger and held the door latch. He smiled and said, "Don't be in such a hurry to leave." Shui Baochai carried Qingwen and kicked the door. With a bang, the door broke into several pieces. It didn't matter whether the door latch was a latch or not. Even if Sun Lang could make Shui Baochai obediently lie on the ground with one finger, he couldn't do it. He could only look at Sister Lin for help. Lin Daiyu glanced at him and shook her head with a sigh. Shui Baochai stepped out of the room. Then, without saying a word, she walked outside. Sun Lang was about to stop her when he suddenly heard a commotion from afar. It seemed to come from the direction of the mansion. A loud voice came from afar. "Today, if the Jia family doesn't hand over the girl, we will turn this Rongwa mansion upside down." Chapter 770. This was Jia Shi's study, which was originally part of the front yard and not far from the gate. A loud shout came from afar. "If the Jia family doesn't hand over the girl today, we'll turn this Rongwa residence upside down." There were also faint sounds of clamoring and quarreling. Sun Lang was startled when he heard this. So fast, he glanced at the unconscious Qingwen and felt that this matter was a little strange. Granny Ma and Granny Wang's plan was very good. Wang Zixing's death and Jia Su's silencing were all personally witnessed by Qingwen. As long as they captured her, brought her out of the residence and handed her over to the Wang family for interrogation, they would definitely find out the truth. Then, the Jia family's concealment of the truth and the silencing of the Wang family would become the greatest evidence, and the blame for the murder of the Wang family's acting head would be firmly placed on the Rongwa residents. Therefore, wasn't the most reasonable and sensible plan to first take care of this little girl and then bring her to the Wang family? Once everything was foolproof, they would go and reason things out? Why do they come now? Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu also stopped. Lin Daiyu looked at Sister Bao and then at Sun Lang. Wanting to ease the atmosphere, she asked Sun Lang, "Brother, what should we do?" Shui Baochai handed Qing one to Lin Daiyu. "Take care of Qing one. I'll deal with the Wang family. Tanchun won't be able to suppress this kind of situation." Sun Lang said cautiously. That. Shui Baochai turned to look at him and said indifferently, "What? Does the marshal have a better suggestion?" The marshal smiled. "Don't treat me like an outsider. We're all family. If there's anything, let's discuss it. Don't make your own decisions, okay?" Sister Bao nodded. "Good. Now that the Wang family has come to us so aggressively, they must have been instigated and used by someone for Wang Zixing's sake. What can you do when the family is in trouble? The Wang clan's people will attack at any moment. Why? Does Marshal want to go out and reveal your identity to scare them off?" Sun Lang said awkwardly. "That's not very appropriate. Disregarding everything else, how would he pass the old madam's test after his dazzling debut?" The corner of Shui Baochai's mouth seemed to reveal a faint sneer. "Then what did you say?" "Why?" Sun Lang said angrily. "Madame Ma hasn't succeeded yet, and the Wang family has already come to our door. What does this mean?" This meant that they did not have a unified command and direct communication. In other words, Madame Ma's master can't directly influence the Wang family's decision, nor can she directly dispatch the members of the Wang family. She can only lead the Wang family to believe that the Jia family is suspicious and then lure them to the Rongwa mansion. After the confrontation between the two sides, she threw Qingwen out, triggering the confrontation between the two families. Sister Lin tried her best to ease the atmosphere and nodded. "So that's how it is." But Sister Baochai's expression still didn't change. Sun Lang looked a little pained. He continued, "Although this lacks a unified command and seems very troublesome, there is one advantage. That is, it can hide the traces to the greatest extent to prevent me from following the clues to find the mastermind behind the scenes. But there is a huge problem. The margin for error is too low. That is to say, if something goes wrong, even if the other party wants to change, they can't do anything about it." Sister Lin was still working tirelessly, nodding vigorously. "That's right. It's really hard for her. She's obviously a cold sister who doesn't like to talk much, but she's trying very hard to find something to talk about. Alas, my sister is really, really cute." Shui Baochai had a "please continue your performance" look on her face. Sun Lang rolled his eyes and continued. "So what I mean is, instead of showing up and scaring people, why don't we hide in the dark? You deal with the group of people from the Wang family, and I'll do some work in the dark. After all, we have to treat the symptoms as well as the root of the problem, right? Otherwise, even if we can suppress the Wang family and scare them back, they'll definitely still have doubts in their hearts and think that we killed Wang Zixing, so they won't be willing to let it go. So, we have to solve this problem once and for all and completely throw the blame away, right?" Shui Baochai nodded. "That makes sense." She looked at Sun Lang with a puzzled expression. "So, why are you telling me this?" Sun Lang said weakly. "Of course it's to tell you my plan." Sister Baochai pretended to be surprised. "What does this have to do with me?" Sun Lang suddenly had the urge to burst into tears. "I just want to tell you that I'm not slacking off. I'm also very useful. Even if I don't show up, I can still do something." Shui Baochai nodded coldly. "I got it." Sun Lang sighed. "Can not be like this? Can't we communicate normally? Don't you dislike me for hiding things from you? Didn't I tell you already? Can we talk openly?" Sister Baochai said indifferently. "But what I want to hear is not such unimportant words." Sun Lang said frantically. "How is this unimportant? Isn't this a very clear division of labor, and a very meaningful action? You have your job. I have my mission, everyone. Shweb Baochai interrupted him. So, is it very important? I know what I should do, and you also know what you should do. What I do has nothing to do with what you do, so there's no need to cooperate. So, whether you inform me or not, it's all unimportant. Isn't that so? This woman was really too scary when she started to pester him endlessly. Sun Lang knew that Sister Baochai was still angry with him. She was probably angry at him for scaring her just now and deceiving the pure feelings of a young girl. He couldn't keep his face, so he became even colder. Even if he was an otaku, he knew that if he went tit for tat now, it would only make things worse. It was like fighting a war. Knowing that the opponent was full of momentum and had a lot of room to maneuver, it was very irrational to rush in recklessly. He had to be flexible. He had to be skillful. He had to avoid the sharp edge. He had to attack the enemy's weakest point. He had to choose a good method. In an instant, Sun Lang was enlightened. As the saying goes, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. Sometimes, things like emotional intelligence would also bounce back. At this moment, Sun Lang showed a gentle smile. Facing the cold face of Sister Baochai, he said softly, "Of course it's meaningful. I'm telling you because I want to tell you what I'm going to do," Shweb Baochai said coldly. "So what does this have to do with me?" "Of course it has to do with you." Sun Lang looked directly into the girl's eyes and said calmly, "When you go tit for tat with the Wong family, you'll know that in a place you can't see, I'm working hard to change the situation. Your actions are meaningful. Your persistence is fruitful. Because you've bought precious time, you've given me the opportunity to lay out a plan, and my plan will break the predicament and deadlock you're facing, freeing you from the Wong family's pressure." Sister Lin's eyes widened, as if she was stunned. She never thought that someone like her brother could say something like this. Sun Lang's smile was gentle and encouraging. "So it's related, it's connected. Although the battlefield is different, you're not alone, because in another place, I'm fighting side by side with you. I'm fighting for you, and you're fighting for me. Even if we're far apart, you can still fight with hope. You won't be lonely, and you won't be at a loss. I think this is the value of confiding and honesty." Shweb Baochai had been staring at him, but after hearing the last sentence, she suddenly turned around and walked outside with large strides. What a glib tongue. Sun Lang looked at her back and laughed. Lin Daiyu came to his side with Qing when in her arms. She winked and mouthed, "She's shy." Sun Lang smiled proudly and mouthed back, "I, Sungama, I've already found a way to capture her." The two of them smiled at the same time. Lin Daiyu's smile was bright and beautiful, without any haze. It seemed that she wasn't affected by the previous matter too much, and also seemed to have thought through some things. Perhaps in some aspects, she was more indifferent than Shweb Baochai, more able to see through the truth and face the heart directly. Perhaps for Sister Lin, as long as the person in front of her was still the person in her heart, everything else didn't matter. Shweb Baochai, who had walked to the front, shouted without turning her head, "Lin Daiyu, what are you standing there for?" She was so angry that she didn't even call her pin Sister Lin stuck out her tongue and said, "Brother, I'm leaving first." Sun Lang nodded. "Go. This girl will wake up very soon. After she wakes up, make up some lies to deal with her. Also, since this girl has been targeted by Madame Ma, it's hard to say whether or not the enemy has a backup plan. You'll have to be a bit tired. It's best if you move together with her. Be careful in everything and don't try to be brave. Don't worry." Lin Daiyu replied, "I know." She looked at Shweb Baochai's back and said with a low laugh, "Brother, you should think about how to coax her. She is usually very reasonable and has always been the one coaxing others. But once her temper flares up and she throws a tantrum, it will be very difficult for you to coax her. After all, brother, you just made her very angry." Sun Lang smiled and said, "That's right. On the contrary, Pin who usually throws a tantrum at such a critical juncture, is surprisingly able to maintain her astonishing rationality and understanding. This really makes brother feel touched." Sister Lin pursed her lips and said, The level of these words is much lower than what you said to her before. Sun Lang said with a smile, the rarer something is, the greater its value. Next time, I'll consider you first. The girl smiled lightly. Holding Qingwen, she ran with small steps to catch up with Shui Baochai. Sun Lang looked at the backs of the two people from behind and sighed softly. There was an apology left unsaid. It should be unnecessary to say it. He thought back to what Shui Baochai had said before. Her tears, her questions, her grief, her melancholy, and her feelings. I only want to grieve for your sorrow and rejoice for your joy. I want to understand everything about you. I want to experience the wind and rain with you, and not just smile in the cradle you weave. Are you the same? Sun Lang sighed softly. He suddenly realized that there were many things he had to learn. Perhaps the things he had lost in those 8 years were even more than he had imagined. Because in those 8 years, he had long been accustomed to playing the role of a perfect person. He sympathized with his soldiers, respected and loved his fellow soldiers, was filled with ideals, and would never give up hope. He was like the sun, shining down on everyone. The deeper the hatred in his heart, the deeper the light on his exterior. Thus, it was only natural that the emotions and love that truly belonged to humans had been forgotten. He was silent for a moment. His figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood. The main gate of the Rongwa Manor. Normally, for a large and powerful family like the Rongwa Manor, unless they were welcoming some honored guest or holding some grand event, the main gate would not normally be opened. But today, an unwelcome guest had come, and the main gate had been forcefully pushed open as a provocation. The Wang clan seemed to have planned this for a long time. Not only had they circled around from another direction, they had also sent people to guard the 2 side gates. Then, they had swarmed toward the main gate, surrounding all the gatekeepers and guards to prevent them from calling for reinforcements from the Ningwa Manor. Now that they had broken through the main gate, they were in a standoff with the Rongwa Manor's retainers. Both sides were on the verge of breaking out into a fight. On the Wang clan side, there were many well-dressed old men, all of them dignified and dignified. On the other hand, on the Rongwa Manor's side, only a group of retainers and even maids had come of their own accord. The Jia clan, on the other hand, was in dire straits. Someone from the Wang clan side shouted, "Call your steward out." Sun Lang moved extremely quickly, arriving at the scene before Shui Baochai. He observed for a moment, glanced at the peaceful Ningwa Manor next door, and then at the orderly arrangements of the Wang clan outside. After a moment of thought, he understood the other party's intentions. It seemed like the Wang clan had not only sealed off the news, they had also probably obstructed the unaware Jia Su. They had done all they could. Damn it, Sun Lang sneered. Seeing that the situation was still under control, he flashed and rushed toward the Ningwa Manor. He had to call Jia Su over first. Sun Lang had been to the Ningwa Manor a few times, so he was familiar with the place. This time he did not need to bring anyone, so his speed was several times faster. Soon, he arrived at Jia Su's quiet study in the bamboo forest. He pushed the door open and saw Jia Sherdao sitting obediently in the living room, waiting for him. Seeing Sun Lang coming in, Jia Sherdao jumped up happily. "Brother." But then, his expression became unnatural. This guy clearly recalled what had happened earlier, especially Jia Su's misunderstanding. What a joke. Father is really too much. Sun Lang was very attentive, or rather, a straight man's radar detected the gaze signal. He frowned. "Your expression is disgusting. Are you thinking of something disgusting?" Jia Sherdao shook his head. "No, of course not. Forget it. Now is not the time to talk nonsense." Sun Lang said, "Where did your father go?" "I don't know. I went back to my room to change. I just came back." "Father is not here." Seeing Sun Lang's expression, Jia Sherdao hurriedly said, "But it's okay. Father has always taken care of everything. Even if he had to leave, he would definitely explain." He got up and left the living room to go to the study next door. Then he shouted in surprise, "I knew it. He's here." Father said, "Well, he said he wanted to meet a guest." He came out with a piece of paper and said, "Brother, is there something urgent?" Sun Lang nodded. "It's a long story. Take me to him first." Okay. Along the way, Jia Sherdao and Sun Lang hurried to the place where Jia Su met the guest. He took Sun Lang to the back of the house, and a conversation came from inside. Brother Zixing didn't come back all night. The Wang family is very worried. Sigh. Although we should not wash our dirty linen in public, the Wang family and the Jia family are family. There's nothing that can't be said. We only hope that Duke Ning can help us. Sun Lang listened for a while and sneered inwardly. The Wang family was indeed a hypocrite. They used this reason to stop Jia Su and then cause trouble in Rongwa Mansion. Who gave them the guts to do so? Sun Lang pushed Jia Sherdao away and saw a faint figure through the window. He determined Jia Su's position by listening and said directly, "Uncle, the Wang family has broken down the middle door of Rongwa Mansion." Jia Su's expression changed when he heard this. Seeing his expression change, the person opposite him asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" "Good for you, Prince." Jia Su suddenly stood up. "How dare you send me up?" The person didn't know where he exposed himself, but he didn't look like a scheming person. He laughed. "Yes, I did. So what? Ningwa Mansion is Ningwa Mansion, and Rongwa Mansion is Rongwa Mansion. I advise you not to get involved in this mess. Just stay here with me for a while." Jia Su said coldly, "This is Ningwa Mansion." The person sneered. "But my kung fu is better than yours. Plus, this place is narrow. You've sent everyone away. What do you think will happen if we fight? I advise you to calm down so that you don't suffer. It won't look good on your face. You should know." As soon as he finished, a hand pressed down on his head from behind. The person's eyes rolled back, and he fainted on the ground. Sun Lang kicked him aside. Jia Su didn't look surprised. He seemed to be satisfied and approved of Sun Lang's sneak attack as a great grandmaster. He looked at the person on the ground and said coldly, "This old bastard came to me secretly and told me about Wang Zixing's disappearance. He then asked me for a plan. He sounded so pitiful that I was fooled. I didn't expect him to come up with such a plan. Humph, since he's here, let's invite him to stay in Ningwa Mansion for a while." The wise man thought of many things from this scam. He looked at Sun Lang with a stern expression. "Why is the Wang family so bold? Who instigated them?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "It's a long story. Let's get through this first. Shui Baochai will deal with the Wang family for now. Uncle, bring some men to block them from the back. Since the Wang family is here, they won't be able to get away easily." Jia Su pondered for a moment and said, "Got it. I'll go gather some men. You and Gu Dao will go first. If the situation changes and something goes wrong, we won't be able to take care of them." Sun Lang said, "Let's do that." Chapter 771. As Jia Su started to deploy his troops, Sun Lang and Jia Sherdao returned to Rongwa Mansion. Along the way, Jia Sherdao looked at Sun Lang's back more than once with a strange expression. Sun Lang was a bit creeped out by his stare. He turned around and said angrily, "What are you looking at?" Startled, Jia Sherdao hurriedly waved his hands. No, nothing. I just feel that there's something wrong with you. Did something happen?" After a moment of silence, Sun Lang said lightly, "Nothing. I just found out by accident that your cousin didn't run away from home on his own. He was instigated by someone." Stunned, Jia Sherdao nodded blankly. "Oh." 3 seconds later, he realized what was going on. "Huh." Sun Lang shrugged. Obviously, Jia Sherdao wasn't as calm as Sun Lang. He stammered, Then, if, Sun Lang said indifferently. "Yes, so even if I have to go to the ends of the earth, I will investigate this matter clearly. I will find out who planned all of this. I will make mincemeat out of his entire family." Jia Sherdao's mouth was wide open. He was shocked by this big news. After the shock, he was extremely horrified. Then he suddenly reacted and looked at Sun Lang carefully. It was such a big news, but his brother was so quiet. He was afraid that he was going to explode in silence. But no matter how he looked at it, his brother was too quiet, as if he had just finished stroking someone. His brother's heart was pounding. He said softly, "Brother, did something else happen?" Sun Lang said calmly, "Oh, they were there too." Jia Sherdao almost jumped up. "What?" That's it. Sun Lang's expression looked a bit weird. He reached out and patted his brother's shoulder. Anyway, you have to be careful. Huh? Jia Sherdao felt that his brain was about to explode. Be careful? What do I have to be careful of? He was confused. Besides, Lin Daiyu was fine, but sister-in-law Bao Chai was gentle and kind. She was never angry with anyone. Why should he be careful of her? But Sun Lang didn't explain anything. He patted his brother's shoulder hard, shook his head, and sighed. Confused, Jia Sherdao followed Sun Lang over the tall wall and landed in Rongwa Mansion. It was very close to the main gate. The noise was getting louder and louder. There were curses, yells, and roars. The situation didn't sound good. The two of them moved stealthily and found a secluded place to observe the situation at the main entrance. It was still a confrontation between the two sides. The aggressive members of the Wang clan and the servants of the Jia clan were holding weapons in their hands, ready to jump at each other's throats, glaring at each other. Many members of the Wang clan had come, and it could be said that they had turned out in full force. On the other hand, the momentum of the Jia clan was slightly weaker because there was no one leading them. Although the Jia family was divided into Rong and Ning mansions, they came from the same root. Because of Sun Lang, Jia Sherdao had a strong sense of identity with Rongwa Mansion. Seeing the aggressive Wang family, he said angrily, "They are so evil. What if they disturb Grandma?" Sun Lang didn't say anything. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the crowd of the Wang family. Suddenly, a frivolous shout came from the crowd. "Is there no one else in the Jia family? We've been waiting for so long, and no one in charge has come out to speak. Even if there are no men, a woman will do." Towards the end, the weird laughter in his voice couldn't be concealed. It was obvious that he was teasing. The servants of the Jia mansion all scolded him angrily. Hearing this, Jia Sherdao's blood rushed to his face. His body shook as if he wanted to rush out, but Sun Lang held him down and said lightly, "Calm down." As soon as he finished speaking, a cold voice filled with anger sounded in everyone's ears. "There are only women left in the Rongwa mansion." With a gust of wind, a beautiful yellow figure flew over. Everyone's vision blurred, and a woman stood firmly in the middle of the field. This woman's pink face was angry, but her beauty was outstanding. Her gaze was cold, and her posture was graceful. She was like a high and mighty fairy that couldn't be profaned, making people feel ashamed of their inferiority. Of course, what attracted the most attention was not her moving appearance, but the halberd in her hand. This kind of tyrannical weapon in the hands of a peerless beauty, the contrast was too strong. However, no one felt that it was funny or out of place, because when this woman held the halberd in her hand, a sense of heroism that looked down on men spontaneously arose. Seeing her, the expressions of the Wang family changed slightly. On the other hand, the Rongwa mansion cheered in surprise. "Young mistress." Shui Baochai raised her hand, and the sky halberd stabbed into the ground. Looking at the Wang family opposite her, she said in a Sun-Ran tone, "There are only women left in the Rongwa mansion. That's because all the men in our family died on the battlefield. Even the women went on the battlefield and won against the sky demon. That's why you cowards hiding behind us can spout nonsense here at this moment." This fiery speech shocked everyone, especially the servants and maids of Rongwa Manor. In their impression, young Madame Shui was always kind and gentle when she spoke to anyone. It seemed that they had never seen her lose her temper or scold anyone. What was wrong with her today? Jia Sherdao was speechless. Sister-in-law Bao Chai is so angry. What's wrong? He looked at Sun Lang and was glared at by Sun Lang. "Why are you looking at me?" The younger brother said bluntly. Sister-in-law just said that all the men in her family died. Sun Lang slapped the back of his head. "You talk too much." He couldn't help but think of how jealous Sister Bao had been. She had been very angry because Sun Lang had told Jia Sherdao the truth and kept her in the dark. It was all his brother's fault. Thinking of this, Sun Lang slapped him again. "It's all your fault." Jia Sherdao held his head, looking very wronged. On the Wang family's side, a middle-aged man in brocade coughed and said, "General Shui, about this, what What can I do for you, sir? Shue Baochai reached out to hold the sky halberd and said coldly, Jia Shi, Wang, and Shue. The four families of Jinling should have helped each other, but you bullied the Rongwa mansion because we're all alone. You came to our door, flirted with the women, and insulted the heroes. Although all the men in the Rongwa mansion are dead, the women are still here. You bullied the Rongwa mansion, so let's have a real fight in front of the emperor. Jia Shi Dao whispered, Brother, did you make sister-in-law angry? She said that you're dead. Sun Lang's face darkened, and he slapped him again. Don't King talk nonsense. The middle-aged man said, General Shue, don't get me wrong. There's a reason for this. The acting master of the Wang family, Wang Zixing, Shue Baochai pulled out the sky halberd and slammed it on the ground. The clanging sound shook everyone's eardrums. She said firmly, There's no misunderstanding. I heard it clearly. The Wang family bullied the dead heroes of the Rongwa mansion. Although I'm a woman, I have to protect the reputation of my dead husband and my family. She raised the sky halberd and pointed it at the opposite side. The cold light on the tip of the sky halberd swallowed the cold sunlight. She shouted with a murderous look, With your blood? Damn it! Which son of Ibi *TCH talks so much? The middle-aged man cursed in his heart. If they fought like this, not only would there be casualties, the Rongwa mansion would also be able to say that they had insulted the heroes of the Jia family. They would be in the wrong no matter where they went. And this Shue Baochai had a lot of connections in the army. But calling people out to apologize would dampen the spirit of the Wang family for no reason. And it would also damage his reputation. As he was thinking about this, he heard a low voice behind him. Seventh brother, where's your sense of responsibility? Your people can't keep their mouths shut. Now that things are more important, let this woman have nothing to say first. Bastard, you're not the one who made the decision, and you're making sarcastic remarks about me here. The middle-aged man had no choice but to turn around and shout. Who said that just now? Get out here. Apologize to General Shue. She's magnanimous and won't lower herself to your level. The crowd dilly-dallied and looked at each other. Unable to resist the strict urging, everyone's eyes revealed the culprit. A young man shrank his head and moved out with a fearful expression. He raised his head and quietly glanced at Shue Baochai. After a moment of daze, his eyes flashed with surprise and greed. He whispered, little one, the middle-aged man from the Wang family said sternly, kneel down and kowtow to General Shue. Slap your own mouth. Shue Baochai said indifferently, There's no need for that. Seventh Master Wang's expression relaxed, and the young man with the bad mouth also breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that he had escaped a disaster. Only God knew what he was thinking, and then he looked at Shue Baochai secretly and wantonly. Then, young Mistress Shue of the Rongwa residence said calmly, The Jia residence's poetry and sword are passed down through generations. Etiquette and righteousness come first, honor and disgrace come second. You spouted nonsense and insulted the heroes of Tianyuan. It can be said that you are rude and ungrateful. 3 generations of the Rongwa residence's men died on the battlefield. From grandfather to husband, they sacrificed their lives for the country and faced death with equanimity. She looked at the young man and said calmly, Give me your head. As soon as she said this, the faces of the Wang family's experts changed. It didn't matter if this person had a bad mouth or if he deserved to die. He couldn't die in the Jia residence, let alone in the hands of outsiders. Their thoughts were connected, and they rushed out together. However, Shue Baochai had already raised her Fangtian halberd and rushed over with unstoppable momentum. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the bricks under her shoes were crushed. This picturesque fairy wielded a halberd and actually made a terrifying momentum that weighed more than 1,000 pounds. The halberd swept across, and the blade broke through the wind. Shue Baochai stepped on the ground with her right foot, and 3 bricks under her feet were cleverly lifted up. The halberd smashed them into hundreds of stones and sent them flying. This overwhelming attack caught the Wang family's experts off guard, and they could only protect their faces and dodge. However, this was only a feint and Shweb Baochai was fighting for this moment. She took the opportunity to kill her target. The young man's martial arts were weak, and he staggered back in shock. His legs went soft, and he fell to the ground. There was only fear on his face, as if he couldn't believe that this beautiful woman would turn hostile and kill someone. He begged, "Spare my life." Shweb Baochai's expression was indifferent. She turned the halberd upside down, and the young man's body was involuntarily thrown into the air. In the stern shouts of the crowd, the girl's expression was indifferent. She held the weapon with both hands and suddenly chopped down. The crescent blade of the halberd flashed a cold light under the sun, and the ferocious blood color suddenly bloomed. The body was cut in half in the air, and a pile of bloody intestines fell out of the abdominal cavity and fell to the ground with a plop. This cruel method of execution would torture the prisoner, but it would also deter the onlookers. Because the vitality of people was very strong, after being cut in half, they would not die immediately. The upper body would struggle for a while, and would even scream until the end of their life. Seventh Master Wang was furious. "You've gone too far." Shweb Baochai glanced at him and said indifferently, "I've already restrained myself enough by not sending troops to flatten your Wang family. Don't worry, this is not over yet." After she finished speaking, she looked at the half of the body that was struggling to crawl and scream on the ground. She walked over with the halberd. In the horrified and frightened eyes of the crowd, she quietly watched the man slowly lose his breath. After he died, she dropped the halberd and cut off his head without hesitation. There was a very low sound of retching in the crowd. After doing all this, Shweb Baochai, who was without any expression, stood in the field with the halberd, responding to the different looks on the opposite side. There was fear, anger, and fear. The woman said calmly, "Please remember, there are no men in the Rongwa mansion, but there are still women. What men can do, women can do too." Sun Lang witnessed all this. Jia Sherdao was more than just stunned. He seemed to have thought of something and looked at Sun Lang in horror. He whispered, "Brother, brother, didn't you tell me to be careful?" Sun Lang said solemnly, "Yes, your sister-in-law is a little unhappy with you now. Be careful." His brother was about to cry. "But why?" Sun Lang looked into the distance and said, "You must be a virgin. You've never had a girlfriend, so you don't understand. Women are emotional creatures. They don't need a reason to be angry." At this moment, they heard Shweb Baochai's calm voice, "Someone clean up these two bodies and give them to the Wang family to take away. As for the head, keep it. Later, bring it to the ancestral hall and burn it for the young master to see." "Burn it for the young master." Jia Sherdao couldn't help but laugh. "Brother, she's angry at you, right? She doesn't need a reason." Sun Lang kicked him directly. After Shweb Baochai killed the man, she didn't even look at the body and blood on the ground. She shocked everyone with her fierce methods and bloody execution, and quietly controlled the rhythm and the situation. Then, she looked at the people of the Wangs and said lightly, "This is the end of the matter. I won't pursue it anymore. Let's get down to business. So, friends and elders of the Wangs, Shweb Baochai is here. May I ask, what are you doing at my house?" Chapter 772. The Halberd, the Blood, and the Beauty. Everyone's momentum was taken away. Shweb Baochai stood there with the halberd in her hand. She was wearing a yellow dress that accentuated her graceful figure. Her sleeves fluttered in the wind, and her hair was in an exquisite bun. Her eyebrows were light, and her eyes were drooping. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have been able to associate her with killing. As the saying went, a person with a great reputation lived up to his name. After the shock and anger, the people of the Wang family felt a deep sense of fear. Invincible Lin Daiyu reincarnated ghost hero Shweb Baochai. Now they finally knew why such a dignified and beautiful woman would have such a nickname. There were only wrong names, but there were no wrong nicknames. Now the Wang family came aggressively, but one of their people was killed by Shweb Baochai in front of everyone. It was a slap in the face, but they couldn't say anything. Big families like the Jia family and the Wang family valued face and reputation very much. Their words were disrespectful, and they insulted the other family's heroes who sacrificed their lives for the country. Even if they were killed, they couldn't say anything. Even if there was a lawsuit, the Wong family would still be the one to suffer. They couldn't dwell on this issue anymore. Now the Wong family spirit had been reduced by 30%. Xue Baochai took advantage of the incident just now to attack them, which had shaken their morale. They couldn't let it go on like this. The people of the Wong family were shocked, but when they heard Xue Baochai's impolite question, they were a little angry. They didn't care about what happened before because they were in the wrong. But in terms of seniority, she was just a junior. How could she talk to them like that? Not to mention the life of their elder brother. Lord Wong said coldly, "Why are you here? Why are you asking me?" "My family's acting master, Wang Zixing, came to the Rongwa mansion the day before yesterday for a meeting. He hasn't returned since. General Xue, please tell me where he is now." Xue Baochai said lightly, "I heard that my grandmother was sick, so I returned to Jinling overnight. When I returned home today, I saw the uncles of the Wong family breaking down the door and looking for trouble. They didn't look like they were here to ask for his whereabouts, but to condemn us. Are you here to destroy the Rongwa mansion?" An elder of the Wong family shouted, "Don't be unreasonable. I only want to know the whereabouts of Brother Zixing. I've already said that I've just returned home today and know nothing about this matter, so I can't answer your questions," Xue Baochai said coldly. "Someone who knows the truth will answer your questions later." The old man shouted, "Then why aren't you calling for help?" Xue Baochai's eyes flashed like lightning, and her killing intent surged. She said in a cold and harsh tone, "Old mister, don't be anxious. That's a separate matter. As a general of the imperial court, I lead troops outside all year round and do not participate in the management of the mansion's affairs. Naturally, there will be someone to answer for Mr. Wang Zixing's matter. However, as the daughter-in-law of the Rongwa mansion, I'm also a member of the Jia mansion. Today, you have openly come to our door, threatened the Rongwa mansion, and bullied the Jia mansion's lone family." Her face was murderous, and her eyes were like lightning. She glanced at everyone one by one. "If there's really a murder case, then it's fine. But if it's a false accusation, then what do you have to say about what happened today?" The old man who spoke just now snorted coldly. "Since we're here, we naturally have confidence," Xue Baochai said coldly. "I only ask you, if there's no such thing, what will you say?" The old man said loudly, "If there's no such thing, we will naturally apologize to you." "Apologize to you?" Xue Baochai was so angry that she laughed. She pointed at the surroundings and said, "You wrongly framed the Rongwa mansion and came to our door to pick a fight. You trampled on our Jia mansion's face and caused our reputation in Jinling to plummet. After searching and interrogating, you can't find anything that can be used against us. How can there be such a good thing in the world?" The old man said angrily, "If it's the Wong family's fault, we will naturally apologize to you. What's wrong with that? You can't even apologize to us. What else do you want?" Xue Baochai raised her long halberd and heavily slammed it on the ground. She said sternly, "Old mister, ask yourself, if all the men in the Rongwa mansion were still here and the glory was still the same as before, would you still dare to come to our door like today? Aren't you taking advantage of the fact that there are no men in the Jia family and only some women left to support the situation? You look down on us, so you want to take the opportunity to step on the Jia family from the top of the 4 major families?" The old man was speechless for a moment. Then he said angrily, "You're making a vicious argument." Xue Baochai just sneered. Her tone softened, but there was an uncontrollable chill in it. "Since the Wong family provoked this matter, then be prepared." The several elders of the Wong family heard this and felt a chill in their hearts. They looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. They had heard of Xue Baochai's reputation. They heard that this young widow of the Rongwa mansion was a virtuous person. But today she said such harsh words. Obviously, she was greatly offended. Among the 4 major families, the Xue family had already entered the business world and was not worth mentioning. The Rongwa mansion had also declined. Normally, the young widow of the Xue family and married into the Jia mansion was not worth mentioning. But they knew that, because of someone, Shui Baochai and Lin Daiyu were still inextricably linked to a certain Tianyuan meritorious corporation. Today's matter could be said to be tricky, but what else could they do? After the fear, there was a tacit consensus. Shui Baochai's revenge could at most hurt the Wang family. But Wang Zixing's disappearance could lead to the extermination of the Wang family. They knew that this would greatly offend the Jia family, but they couldn't care less. After reaching a consensus, the seventh master said indifferently, "General Shui, don't be angry. If the Wang family has wronged your mansion, then we will certainly give you a satisfactory answer." Shui Baochai took in the expressions of the Wang family, and a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. From the beginning until now, her attitude had been extremely unyielding, which was poles apart from her usual behavior. Firstly, the other party had indeed gone too far. In her anger, she had defended the Jia family's lintel and would not cower in the slightest. Secondly, the anger in her heart had not yet subsided. Her husband, who was an idiot who did not understand her feelings, was really annoying. She had no choice but to take the opportunity to vent the anger in her heart. But other than that, there was another very important reason. She was testing the Wang family and leading them a talk. The Wang family came to the door in a very aggressive manner, which was very unusual. They didn't leave any room for negotiation. If things were abnormal, there must be a demon. The result of the test also made her feel surprised and puzzled. But it didn't matter. If she didn't understand, there was no need to think about it, because she wasn't shouldering all of this alone. Her mission was only to deal with the Wang family's coercion. How to resolve this thorny situation once and for all was another person's problem. Just as her husband said, they were fighting side by side. Even if they weren't on the same battlefield, they were fighting for the same goal and for each other. She knew that Sun Lang was secretly watching all of this. Her previous words and probing were all done for her husband. She knew that he would hear it. She knew that he would understand. Thinking of this, her slightly gloomy mood became a bit better. She turned her head and asked, "Where is the third young lady? Have you gone to invite her?" The Jia mansion servants looked at her with a bit more respect. In this time of crisis, the young lady Shui displayed a toughness and responsibility that left a deep impression. These servants and maids discovered that the amiable and well-liked young lady Shui actually had such a domineering side to her. Someone respectfully said, "I've already gone to invite her. I'll go urge her again." Shui Baochai nodded slightly, and then said to the Wang family, "Please wait a moment." The seventh master looked a bit anxious, but Shui Baochai's Fangtian halberd was clearly in her hand. This woman wasn't easy to get along with, so he had to bow. The two brothers, who were watching from afar, also noticed that something was wrong. Jia Sherdao pondered and said, "Brother, the Wang family's attitude is a bit strange." Most of Sun Lang's attention was on the decapitated body. For some reason, he felt a chill on his neck. Sister Bao's unhesitant beheading clearly made him think of some bad works. Sun Cheng, Shui Yinya, Jia Sherdao. Wait. Bah. It was the forest world. How could it be Jia Sherdao? Although Jia Sherdao didn't know Sun Cheng's secret, but Sister Bao didn't know. Although Sister Bao did know that Jia Sherdao knew, but she didn't, and if she wanted to cut open his stomach to look for something, she should have done it with Jia Sherdao. But it was so disgusting. Sun Lang imagined it and felt very, very disgusted. This was not good. Hearing Jia Sherdao's words, he stepped aside as if nothing had happened, distancing himself from his cousin. Jia Sherdao noticed his brother's movement and asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Sun Lang sighed. "When I think about how your sister-in-law might cut open your stomach with a knife, or cut open your carotid artery with a sword, or push you onto the trolley tracks, I feel a little sad, so I stay away from you." Jia Sherdao's eyes widened. He first turned to look at Shui Baochai, then back at Sun Lang. After 3 or 4 times, he finally reacted and said in a panic, "Why? Why?" Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "You don't understand, so let's not talk about it. What's wrong with the Wang family's attitude?" No, brother. I'm more concerned about what you just said. Are you a 3-year-old with a head full of whys? Why do you care about these details? Let's get down to business and stop wasting time. My life shouldn't be a detail, right? It shouldn't be, right? Okay. I'm just talking nonsense. Forget it. I can't forget it, brother. Sister-in-law just killed someone, and she did it so skillfully. It chilled me to the core. And she seems to be angry with you. Jia Sherdao stared at his brother and seemed to realize something. He suddenly asked, Brother, you didn't accidentally make sister-in-law angry and then sell me out, did you? Sun Lang glared at him and said, What are you talking about? Am I that kind of person? His brother turned his head to the side and sighed bitterly. Sun Lang said, What's with your F***king expression? Huh? I won't hide it from you. It's simple. All the negative emotions that your sister-in-law has been accumulating exploded. She thinks I'm hiding a lot of things from her and won't let her share my burden. Then I'll let it slip that I've told you a lot of things, including the time at my castle. Of course, I didn't go into the details. Anyway, she's very angry. Jia Sherdao was startled and said in surprise, That's it? Sun Lang nodded and said, That's it. His brother's expression said, Brother, you're F***king kidding me again. How is that possible? That's it. Sun Lang sighed and said, Yes, that's it. That's impossible. Brother, you definitely didn't tell her everything, Jia Sherdao said firmly. But why would she be angry about something like this? We two brothers naturally have to support each other. What's the big deal about telling her the truth? No matter how petty a woman is, she wouldn't be entangled in this matter. Besides, she's such a virtuous and understanding person. How could she? Sun Lang said angrily. How the F***ck would I know? She's angry. I'm desperate too. Jia Sherdao looked at Sun Lang. His brother's expression of, I don't understand what a woman is thinking, was very realistic and suited his character. It seemed very unlikely that it was fake. He wondered, is that so? Then why would she be angry? It's very strange. The two brothers looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. I don't understand. Both sides were silent for a moment. Sun Lang looked at his brother and said proudly, You F***king don't understand. I have a lot of girlfriends anyway. What about you? What the F***ck are you talking about? The pathetic are seeking a sense of superiority over those who think they are more pathetic. This was the deep-rooted bad habit of human beings. Jia Sherdao looked at his brother's proud face and hesitated for a moment. He wisely hid some things. There was an unwritten rule in every large and influential family. In order to prevent the young masters of the family from holding back too much before their marriage, or even developing any strange hobbies, the family would assign some pretty and down-to-earth servant girls to serve them when they were of suitable age. That was the kind of service they would provide. As the legitimate son of Ningwa Mansion, he naturally had one. His brother should have one too, but his brother left home very early. At that time, his body wasn't fully grown yet, so he probably didn't have one. Oh no, his brother was actually a visitor from a foreign land and had never returned to Ningwa Mansion. So even if he had one, it had nothing to do with him. The truth was out. The truth of the first of the 10 unsolved mysteries of the 6 armies of Tianyuan was finally out. The truth that troubled the generals and military counselors was finally out. His brother was indeed an inexperienced chick. Can't laugh. Can't laugh. Hold it in. I'll be beaten to death. I'll be beaten to death. If Sun Lang had Xia Wei's mind-reading ability at this time and read Jia Sherdao's thoughts, he would probably put aside all brotherly affection and burn this bastard into a sky lantern first. But he didn't know. The evil feudal dross had created a huge gap between people that couldn't be crossed. The more Jia Sherdao thought about it, the more he wanted to laugh. In order to prevent his brother, who had a keen eye in this aspect, from seeing any clues, he decisively changed the topic. Brother, let's not talk about sister-in-law first. The Wang family is very strange. Sun Lang grunted and asked, What's strange about it? Jia Sherdao looked at the crowd of the Wang family and said, They're too hasty, too tough, too ruthless. Just like what sister-in-law said, they're not here to ask about Wang Zixing's whereabouts. It's as if they already know that Wang Zixing died in the Rongwa mansion, so they're here to punish us. Sun Lang nodded. What else? Jia Sherdao thought for a while and continued. But if they're really here to avenge Wang Zixing, they wouldn't have put up such a formation. If they're really sure of the information, they'll just go in and search the body. Although they're tough now, they still look like they want to talk. This means that although they're aggressive, they're still subconsciously thinking that they're lucky and uncertain, he frowned. I saw their expressions when sister-in-law said those harsh words just now. They were afraid, hesitant, and then determined. They know that this behavior has already offended the Jia family. Not only sister-in-law won't let it go, even Ningwa Mansion won't let them go. But even so, they're still stubbornly fighting. Stubbornly fighting. His brother found the key to the problem, and his eyes lit up. Their attitude, it's like they're riding a tiger and can't get off. In other words, they know the consequences, but they have to do it. Sun Lang nodded and said meaningfully, looks like there's obviously something important on Wang Zixing's body that made the leaderless Wang family unite together and even offend the Jia family. If it was only Wang Zixing's death, it wouldn't be enough for the Wang family to shed all pretense of cordiality so decisively. Jia Sherdao looked at Sun Lang. We've dealt with Wang Zixing's body before, Sun Lang said. I've checked him. There's nothing special on him, so there are two possibilities. First, that important thing is in Wang Zixing's heart, and it's a secret he's hiding in his heart. Second, Jia Sherdao said quietly, the person who killed him took it away. Sun Lang looked at the several members of the Wang family and said indifferently, this question we'll find a chance to ask those people. What I'm more interested in is just where did the news leak out to be able to make the Wang family lock onto the Rongwa residents so quickly and so confidently come knocking on their door. In other words, just who is guiding and controlling all of this. At this moment, Jia Sherdao suddenly said, Tanshun is here. There was a commotion in the crowd, and the third daughter of the Jia family with bright eyes and white teeth walked quickly, surrounded by a few maids. The crowd automatically moved aside, and Shui Baochai's Fontian halberd was so eye-catching that she recognized her sister-in-law immediately. She rushed over in surprise and joy. Sister-in-law! Tenderness flashed across Shui Baochai's eyes as she gazed at the little sister in front of her. Tanshun was her husband's little sister, and she had missed Sun Lang for the past 2 years. Naturally, her love for the house extended to its crow, and her relationship with Tanshun became even closer. Moreover, this little sister was also a very likable girl. She hugged Tanshun and said softly, Thank you for your hard work. Not all. Tanshun took a deep breath and held back the tears in her eyes. She was now one of the heads of the Rongwa mansion in front of everyone, and she couldn't show her childish side in front of outsiders. She said softly, Sister-in-law, why are you back? Shui Baochai's expression was a bit complicated. From the time she was ordered to go to Mingzhou to today's secret return, everything she had experienced during this time was simply earth-shattering. Her husband was still alive, which was the best news in the world. However, the affairs of the world were unpredictable and entangled. Her husband, who had survived the great desolate mountain, was burdened with karma and was wary of everything in this world. He had been estranged from people for 2 years, and there was a shocking secret that made her think about it carefully. With so many things mixed together, even someone as intelligent as her felt overwhelmed and physically and mentally exhausted. She sighed. It's a long story. Let's not talk about it. If Tanshun knew that her brother, whom she had admired and missed, was still alive, she would probably be very happy. But her husband, sigh. Why was it like this? At this moment, someone from the Wang family said, You too, let's talk about the old days later. This is the third daughter of the Jia family, right? Now, is it up to you to make decisions in the family? Hearing this, Jia Tanshun raised her eyebrows, and the weak attachment in Shui Baochai's arms was swept away. She said neither humbly nor overbearingly, Grandma is old, and she has entrusted all the affairs in the family to us juniors. Uncles, why did you come here so fiercely? Although the Rongwa family is in a difficult situation now, it is not easy to bully. Seventh Master Wang's face darkened. Since you are now in charge of the Rongwa family, it's just right. Previously, the acting master of the Wang family, Wang Zixing, came to visit. It should be you who received him, right? When Jia Tanshan heard that the Wang family came to pick a fight, she guessed that Wang Zixing's death was probably exposed. She didn't care about what went wrong, but she had to get through this hurdle first. After receiving the news, she didn't come immediately. Instead, she calmed down first and went through the possible conversations and things in her mind. She had a draft in her heart before she rushed over. Now that her sister-in-law was also back, she was more confident. After hearing this, she showed an indignant expression and snorted. Yes, the actions of family head Wang Xing of your family have really opened my eyes. He knew that our old madam is old and sick in bed. She can't be frightened, but he insisted on seeing our old madam. What is his intention? Tanshan seemed to remember what happened before, and her face showed anger and fear. Of course I didn't agree, but on the surface, he retreated in the face of difficulties. Secretly, he knocked out the servant girl and wanted to break into the old madam's courtyard. I was very strange before. Why would the master of the Wang family of Jinling do such a rude thing? Today, after seeing the actions of all the uncles, I understand. This is called complimenting each other. Hearing this, Xue Baochai's face became colder. She looked at Seventh Master Wang and asked, "Is this true?" Seventh Master Wang was very unhappy with Tanchuan's rebuke and sarcasm. He said coldly, "This is only your side of the story. Who knows what happened at that time?" Jia Tanshan said angrily, "That guy wanted to break into grandmother's courtyard. Fortunately, he was stopped by Uncle Jia Su of the Ningwa family. The two sides fought fiercely and Uncle was injured. Is this fake?" Seventh Master Wang said indifferently, "Is it? Jia Su fought with the acting master?" Tanchuan's heart suddenly tightened, but she still braced herself and said, "Yes." The people opposite suddenly sneered. Seventh Master Wang said slowly, "But the news we heard is different from what you said." Chapter 773. At the same time, in the Ningwa mansion, Jiasu sat in the hall with a gloomy face. The entire Duke Ning's mansion had been mobilized. Unlike the Rongwa mansion, the Ningwa mansion had two generations of family members. Duke Ning, Jiasu, was in his prime, and his son, Jia Sherdao, was also a hero who had made great contributions on the Tianyuan battlefield. Although such a family had few people, it obviously had a bright future, so it had a different cohesiveness. People came and went in the hall. Loyal stewards and guards at all levels kept reporting all kinds of things. The children have defeated Prince Shan's entourage. Unrelated people are forbidden to walk around in the mansion. The guards of each house have put on their armors and weapons, and the horses have put on their saddles. There are indeed strangers peeping outside the mansion. We have contacted the Rongwa mansion. It's calm for now, and the two sides are confronting each other. Jiasu nodded. He was good at managing his family and training his subordinates. The private armed forces of the Ningwa mansion were more valuable than quantity, so they were a force worth relying on. For a noble family like the Duke Ning's mansion, especially a family of generals of Tianyuan, the policy on raising private soldiers had never been strict, and the imperial court mostly turned a blind eye. This should be a reward from the imperial court, and also to show the magnanimity of the emperor, because it was actually useless. The imperial power would only care about things that could shake its rule and could make concessions for other things. For example, in this case, if you did not have an imperial army, even if you raised 1,000 heavy cavalry, it would be useless. He waved his hand and ordered the scouts to investigate again. Now that all the men and horses have been assembled, they only needed to wait for an order to rush out of the Ningwa mansion and rush forward on fast horses. In a moment, they would be able to surround the main gate of the Rongwa mansion and block the Wang clan who dare to come and provoke them. But this was a means, not the result. Killing the Wang family in a big battle was not his goal. So when to show up and when to take action to gain the most benefits was a question worth thinking about. Jiasu frowned. He had just started to mobilize the troops after hearing the news and had no time to think about it. Now that he had calmed down, he found a hidden mystery in this matter. Although Wang Zixing had died in Ronghua Manor, his uncle and nephew had worked together to cover up the matter flawlessly. How could the Wang family have confirmed the news in just 1 or 2 days and then come knocking on their door without hesitation? Moreover, they didn't come to negotiate with the Jia clan. Instead, they came in aggressively and smashed the door. It was as if they wanted to fight with the Jia clan. How could the Wang clan have such courage and decisiveness? If it was the Shi clan, it would make more sense. However, the Wang clan had been without a leader for many years. How could the elders of the Wang clan, who had different thoughts, reach such a violent consensus in such a short period of time? Does Wang Zixing have some kind of secret? Then who told him about this? Jiasu knocked on the table and mumbled to himself, "The informant has a great influence on the Wang family." So he was able to convince them that the informant might even have something to do with the Wang family. Most importantly, the informant might be directly related to Wang Zixing's death. A name came to his mind again. Duke Ning said in a low voice, "Wang Shifeng. Wang Shifeng. It's not that I don't believe you, but why is the evidence piling up on you one after another? There are only 2 possibilities. If you're not the murderer, you must have attracted the murderous intent of the murderer. Then, where are you hiding now?" At this moment, hurried footsteps came from outside the door. A steward of Ningguo Manor hurried in and said in a low voice, "Master, the man you ordered to be locked in the dungeon has woken up. He wants to see you." Wang Zixing. He woke up quickly. Jiasu sneered, "What a clown. He's just saying something ridiculous. Why should we listen to him? Let him make all the noise he wants." Wang Zishan might know some inside information, but it was more likely that he didn't. After all, the Wang family sent this bastard to stall for time. Once the matter was exposed, he might fall into the hands of the enemy. A sacrificial pawn like this couldn't know too many secrets. Even if he knew, he had to use torture to pry open his mouth. Wang Zishan might not be smart, but his martial arts weren't weak. He was tough, so he wouldn't be able to get any information in a short time. But the steward hesitated and said in a low voice, he said that if you don't see him, you'll regret it, because he has something that can solve your confusion. Jiasu raised his eyebrows. "Oh, you want to say it? That's interesting." The doubts in his heart. Could it be about the Wang family? What is this guy up to? Duke Ning thought for a while and stood up. The situation in Ronghua Manor is still under control. It's fine to go and take a look. Lead the way. Yes. The 2 of them hurried all the way and came to a remote courtyard. Rich and powerful families had always been the place to hide the filth. They looked bright and beautiful on the outside, but inside there was darkness that was not known to outsiders. Ningguo Mansion also built such a facility in case of emergency. After the guards bowed, they opened the mechanism. The steward held a torch, and Jiasu walked in. A damp and moldy smell hit his face. His expression didn't change as he asked, "Tied up?" The steward replied, "Don't worry, master. We all know how powerful he is. His entire body is tied up with steel and cow tendons. Even the gods wouldn't be able to move him. If he didn't specifically tell us not to hurt him, we could have used something safer." Jiasu just smiled. Unless it was necessary, he wouldn't go to extremes. At this moment, a loud laugh came from inside. "Duke Ning, you're so considerate. After being deceived by me, you're still so kind to your brother. I'm ashamed." The person who spoke was Wang Shan. His laughter was hearty, as though being a prisoner didn't make him angry. He was still talking and laughing. If he wasn't stupid, then he had something to rely on. However, Jiasu was a careful person. He heard something else from the laughter. He's a little excited. There's a tremor at the end of his laughter. Fear? What's he afraid of? Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Jiasu took the torch and strode forward. Dark Prison did not have many guests all year round, so it lacked human touch. It was also neglected to clean up, so the environment was not good. He walked all the way to the deepest cell and saw Prince Shan, who was tied up. He said, "Brother Zishan, I'm sorry. Wang Zishan stared at him. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and revealed a strange smile. He couldn't move his head and could only speak. It's okay, it's okay. It's just for a while. Jiasu clasped his hand behind his back. Oh, Brother Zishan means that you'll be able to see the light of day again soon? You're too confident. The Duke Ning residence isn't a place where you can come and go as you wish. Putting everything else aside, his eldest nephew is in the Rongwa Manor next door. Even if your Wang clan clings onto a big thigh, even if you have a strong backer, even if you invite an expert who can fight, what's the point? Furthermore, your Wang family forced their way into the Duke Ning residence and bullied the old and young. How can he let this go? Wang Zishan looked at him and chuckled. His laughter was strange and cold. In this dark and damp prison, it added to the eeriness. Jiasu didn't say anything. His hands and his sleeves were slowly clenched. His vital qi started to circulate. He was secretly on guard. Brother Zishan, if you have something to say, just say it. Why are you laughing? Wang Zishan chuckled a few times. His tone became serene as he said, You must be thinking that you have very, very powerful helpers on your side. How can I, Wang Zishan, escape from this inescapable net? Jiasu's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't say anything. Don't deny it. I don't even know what happened just now. After I woke up, I was tied up tightly. Although my martial arts aren't top-notch, I'm still a reputable figure in Jinling. To be able to silently take me down in one move, it must be one of the few great grandmasters in the world. Wang Zishan looked at Jiasu with a strange smile. Jiasu hated this smile because it was full of mockery. It was as if he was mocking a fool. For a wise person, there was no expression more uncomfortable than this. This meant that something was out of his control. Jiasu took 2 steps back and said slowly, If Brother Zishan only wants to talk nonsense, then forgive me for not keeping you company. What's the rush? Fine, fine. I just want to say a few more words. Wang Zishan suddenly sighed. He seemed to be talking to himself, but also seemed to be talking to Jiasu. Do you know what a chess piece is? A chess piece is a chess piece. Normally, you can stay quietly and do whatever you want, but once the right time comes, once you are in the right place, you have to play your role without hesitation. For example, the Pegasus doesn't fire its cannon, and the pawns retreat their chariots. This is their task, and they have to do it, even if they will be easily killed in the next round and then fall into the chess basket. There was a hint of melancholy in his eyes. But I didn't expect a pawn like me to cross the river so early. So early, Jiasu's expression changed. He said coldly, What did you say? Wang Zishan looked at Jiasu with a mocking smile. Someone asked me to pass you a message. Do you really think that your nephew is your nephew? Even someone as shrewd as Jiasu paled at this moment. He looked at Wang Zishan in disbelief and said in a low voice, Nonsense. I'm just a messenger. You know whether to believe me or not. Wang Zishan laughed bitterly. One sentence. I just need to pass on one sentence. This is my mission. Jiasu, there will be people coming to find you in the future. This is all I have to say. Chess piece, chess piece. Jiasu's expression changed. He wanted to stop Wang Zishan, but Wang Zishan's body trembled and the light in his eyes quickly dimmed. Wang Zishan, even someone as calm as Jiasu panicked. He rushed forward and said anxiously, Pawn, whose pawn are you? Who are you? Wang Zishan's consciousness was rapidly dissipating. He tried his best to smile and said softly, We sold our souls. This is the price. Ha, Wang family, Wang family. Chapter 774. Wang Zishan was no longer breathing. Jiasu was silent. He retracted his hand from Wang Zishan's neck. A force had destroyed Wang Zishan's heart meridian. It seemed that he had committed suicide. Duke Ning suddenly felt that the air in the black prison seemed a little cold. This is ridiculous, he thought. But Wang Zishan's words were like poisonous vines, instantly taking root in his heart. Do you think that your nephew is really your nephew? What a ridiculous statement. What a clumsy lie. But in this case, many questions could be answered. Jiasu took a deep breath. calm down, he thought. But many messy thoughts came one after another, making him unable to control himself. This was simply too ridiculous, too crazy, too unbelievable. However, all sorts of suspicious points about his nephew, from before the great battle to after, surfaced in his sea of memories. For example, after he ran away from home for 3 years, there was no news of him. Then, in a flash, he became a famous general of the current dynasty who was proficient in both civil and military strategies. Putting aside his rapid improvement in martial arts for the time being, what was with his almost demonic, wise, and decisive military strategy? Back then, he had been suspicious and had even secretly investigated a few of his nephew's famous battles. After his research, he discovered that his treasured nephew, who had amazed the world with a single brilliant feat, was experienced in using troops, had a vicious vision, was decisive in his actions, and was ingenious in his schemes. He was able to predict the enemy's moves and knew himself as well as his enemy. How was he like a kid in his early 20s? He was more like an old monster who had fought against the heavenly demons for hundreds of years. How could the Roma mansion teach such a genius? Even if all the people of 3 generations were tied together, they would not be able to fight against him. Also, it was said that his nephew was known for his unique vision and profound knowledge in the army. He could talk about everything from astronomy and geography, local customs, and even the changes in yin and yang of all things in the world. He could even talk about the political systems of various countries. It was said that he could even scare foreign barbarians. Furthermore, he was also good at telling stories. His head was filled with many strange stories that had never been heard of before, and he was enthusiastically sought after by the soldiers in the army. Although his impression of his nephew was that he did not like to practice martial arts and was instead fond of reading, where the hell did he read those erotic stories that he told? Roma Manor didn't have such a thing. At that time, Jiasu did have a lot of doubts. The more information about his nephew spread, the more suspicious he became. In the end, he could not hold back and went to the Northern Theater of Operations to visit his nephew. The result of the meeting temporarily dispelled his doubts, because his nephew did look like what he remembered. When he asked about his nephew's family story, his nephew answered him fluently. When he asked about his nephew's self-taught, almost demonic military strategy, it was the relevant personnel of the court who revealed and explained it to him with reservations. It was about the secrets of the Imperium, and it was inappropriate for him to ask too much. After all, his nephew did seem to be his nephew. Later, this suspicion slowly faded away because his nephew's contributions were getting bigger and bigger, and he was very filial to his grandmother. Later, Lin Daiyu and Xue Baochai went north, and even Jia Sherdao came to his cousin's side. They got along well with him and even admired him. The status of the Jiao mansion also rose. Many people knew that the Rongwa mansion was probably unparalleled in wealth for at least 50 years. Gradually, Jiasu's suspicion turned into admiration, envy, and even jealousy, because compared to him, his son was simply a retard. But now, the suspicion in his heart was aroused by Wang Zishan's words, because there were still many suspicious points after the war. Why did the court hide his nephew's contributions and seal the secret of the Great Barren Mountain? He was not dead, but why did not return home for 2 or 3 years and did not even say a word? If he was disheartened and hid his identity, it would be fine. First, it was Mingzhou, then Qinzhou. Why didn't he think of his grandmother when he was already fighting against the court? And Jia Sherdao's strange behavior, even his estrangement from the Rongwa mansion. He did not feel the joy and eagerness to go home. Instead, he felt a faint sense of alienation and strangeness to his family. The more Jia Su thought about it, the more frightened he was. He had to admit that smart people were good at imagining things. With just one sentence, he automatically associated all the evidence and doubts. After realizing this, he could not help but smile bitterly, because Duke Ning knew that an invisible net had enveloped him. This was a long-planned plot, a well-thought-out plot. Sowing discord, he murmured. Simple, but effective. Because this was not a clumsy attempt to sow discord, but to magnify the doubts in his heart. It was not to create conflict, but to let nature take its course, because that might be the truth. Therefore, it was a sowing discord, a simple but brilliant sowing discord, because even if they were uncle and nephew, even if they were from the same sect, even if they had a pleasant cooperation, he could not directly verify this matter with the person involved. If he did not ask, the suspicion and doubts would only grow in his heart. If he asked, it would be even worse. If the other party was really an imposter, then he would expose himself and alert him. He would be on guard and even want to kill him. The consequences would be unpredictable. F***. It was rare for Jia Su to swear. He muttered to himself, "The person who set this up is very smart. But what is his motive for telling me this and saying that there will be more people coming to find me?" He looked at Wang Zishan's body and shook his head with a bitter smile. Not to mention other things, this guy's sudden death was one of the problems. How would he explain it to his nephew? How would he lie? This setup is sowing discord. This move was indeed set up against Jia Su, because the person who set this up had sharply grasped Jia Su's personality. The more intelligent he was, the more meticulous and cautious his way of thinking would be. Therefore, he would never take the initiative to speak frankly with Sun Lang, because he was never used to exposing his trump card to others and was not used to putting himself in a situation where he could not retreat. Jia Su sighed again. He had to think carefully, and Duke Ning's gaze moved from Wang Zishan's body to the dark exit. He seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. If Wang Zishan's last words were a plot by the mysterious person, then the other party would definitely not only use one move. Wang Zishan was sent to Duke Ning's residence to delay him. After being captured, he said those words. This was a sinister attempt to sow discord. Then, what were the plans of the Wang family, who was in a standoff in Duke Ning's residence? When Jia Su thought of this, he could not help but worry. The earlier incident had caused him to lose his composure, and he had lost his usual calm and collected state of mind. He no longer cared about Wang Zishan's body and quickly walked toward the exit. The steward in charge of this place was waiting at the entrance. He bowed and said, "Master is back." Jia Su said concisely, "He committed suicide. Seal the entrance and guard it tightly. Do not approach." The steward was shocked at first, but then he replied, "Yes. Ask less and do more. Learn to forget." This was a very useful survival rule. The door closed with a rumble, locking the dark prison in darkness. Jia Su and his servant had left, but in the darkness, a dim light quietly flashed and then disappeared. It came from Wang Zishan's body. After Jia Su left, the body underwent some changes under the influence of a mysterious force. After all, this sowing discord that even Jia Su found difficult was only half done. At this moment, the confrontation between the two parties continued in the Rongwa residence. Seventh Master Wang said coldly, "Third young lady, a straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. I would like to ask you if there was a murder in the east garden of the Rongwa residence when Brother Zixing came to visit, right?" Although Jia Tanshun did not say anything, her pupil shrunk. Sun Lang, who was secretly observing, said faintly, "The Wang family has an expert guiding them. Jia Tanshun might not be able to handle it." Third young lady also felt that it was troublesome, so she could only avoid answering. Where did seventh uncle find out? Seventh Master Wang said directly, "I'm asking you if there was a murder in the East Garden." Jia Tanshun sighed inwardly. Even if she was quick-witted, she was still a little flustered. She did not consider that the other party would not argue with her or confront her. He did not even mention Jia Su. Instead, he went straight to the point. She could only say, "This is a private matter of the Rongwa residence. Seventh uncle, please don't make wild guesses." Before she finished speaking, Seventh Master Wang said angrily, "Private matter? My brother's whereabouts are unknown, and someone from the Rongwa residence happened to die. Naturally, I suspect that the body is my brother Zixing's. Is there a problem?" Jia Tanshun wanted to say something, but Seventh Master Wang didn't give her time to continue. He continued, "Third young lady, If you have a clear conscience, then bring the dead body out to have a look. See if it really belongs to my brother Zixing. Tanshun forced herself to calm down. Body? When did I say that someone died? This is just third uncle's groundless speculation. Something did happen in the East Garden, but it did not involve a life. I've been waiting for you to say that. Seventh Master Wang said sternly. There must be a lot of witnesses that day. Call them out and ask them. Check their testimonies and see if anyone died. Jia Tanchuan's expression changed slightly. At this time, Shui Baochai said coldly, Mr. Wang, you're so powerful. Have you come to the Rongwu residence to investigate a case? You flatter me. Seventh Master Wang cupped his hands and smiled proudly. I am a commoner and indeed do not have the responsibility to protect the land and the people. However, I'm a good citizen of the empire. I heard that there was a murder in the Rongwu residence, but the residence was eager to cover it up. What are you trying to do? A human life is as important as the sky. Since I heard about it, I naturally have to report it to the magistrate and ask him to investigate the matter impartially and strictly. Who died? How did they die? Who witnessed it? Naturally, I have to pass on the information one by one, interrogate them, and find the murderer. He said to Shui Baochai, This is the law of the empire. General Shui, you have no objections, right? Chapter 775. This is the law of the empire. General Shui, you have no objection, right? The seventh Master Wang Ye's words were full of cunning pride. The law of the empire, the law of the empire. This was a peaceful world where human lives were more important than the sky. Although the law was only a tool for those in power to maintain their rule, those with power could enjoy all kinds of privileges in the open and in the dark. No matter how developed the civilization was, this situation had always existed. The only difference was the difficulty and form. The more advanced a society was, the more secretive this privilege would be, but it had always existed. However, the law also represented order and the dignity of the country. The more advanced a society was, the more developed the country was, and the more complete the legal system was, the more the people who enjoyed the privilege had to be restrained. Even if they were happy to take advantage of the loopholes in private, they couldn't publicly announce their privileges on the surface to avoid public anger and turmoil. For example, now, the empire had the glory of the victory of the Tianyuan Empire and had the glorious image of the most powerful country in the world. This national machine represented unparalleled prestige and majesty, and everyone had to respect and obey the orders set by it, at least on the surface. Therefore, even if there were countless dark secrets hidden in the rich families of the empire, they had to be tightly covered and couldn't be exposed. Even if a son of a rich family killed an innocent person on the street, at least he had to leave a family servant to take the blame. He couldn't just walk away and ignore it. You had to follow the rules, even if it was only on the surface. Otherwise, someone would teach you a good lesson and let you know why you had to follow the rules. This was the purpose of the seventh Master Wang Ye. No matter how arrogant a rich family was, they wouldn't dare to question and defy the law of the empire in public. According to the law of the empire, a murder case in the Rongwu mansion should be reported to the investigation department, and the coroner would check the cause of death and record in the file. This was the law of the empire. Even Shui Baochai had nothing to say. When Sun Lang heard this, he said indifferently, he actually provoked the emperor. This move is very clever. It seems that the Jinling magistrate has already sided with the Wang family, or rather, he has sided with the Wang family's backer. Jia Shidao was shocked. What? Sun Lang looked at Jia Shidao, who was making a fuss, and frowned. What's wrong? Jia Shidao didn't believe him. The Jinling magistrate is Mr. Jia Yuying. Sun Lang asked, Jia, are they your relatives? Jia Shidao glanced at Sun Lang and said in a low voice, No, it's just that his surname is Jia. 500 years ago, he was from the same family, but he had nothing to do with the Jia family in Jinling. However, he was an official in his early years and was supported by Uncle Jia Zheng of the Rongwu Mansion. He was promoted to Jinling in recent years and has always been respectful to the Rongwa mansion. In other words, the Rongwa family had a great relationship with the Jinling County Magistrate, so why would they side with the Wang family? Sun Lang snorted at this. He wasn't that naive. You're really stupid. Those officials aren't heartless, but their friendship is built on benefits. If the Rongwa mansion were to become more prosperous, Jia Yutsuan would naturally treat the Jia family like his grandfather. He would always say that he remembers the kindness of the Rongwa mansion and visits him during festivals to improve their relationship. However, now everyone knows that the Rongwa mansion has become a broken boat. Magistrate Jia isn't stupid, so why would he remember your kindness every day? Seeing that Jia Sherdao still didn't believe him, Sun Lang pursed his lips. Besides, look at Wang Qi's smug face. It looks like he's in the bag. Since he's a prominent figure in the Wang family, how could he not know that the Jinling County Magistrate and the Rongwa Mansion are old friends? He's so confident. Obviously, Jia Yutsuan has already been dealt with. Only then did Jia Sherdao reluctantly believe him. He said worriedly, "Then what should we do? They're attacking us openly. If Jia Yutsuan is in cahoots with the Wang family, then Tanshan and sister-in-law will be very passive. After all, Wang Wangxing's body was indeed found in the East Garden. It's hard to say." Sun Lang thought for a moment and said, "There's a good idea right now." Jia Sherdao's eyes lit up as he looked at Oni-chan with admiration. "Brother, you're really something." Sun Lang ignored his brother's flattery. Instead, he said to Sister Bao Chai in the distance, "Don't be afraid. Just call the Jinling County Magistrate over. I'll take care of everything." After hearing Wang Qi's words, Shui Baochai also realized the Wang family's intention. The Jinling County Magistrate, Jia Yutsuan, had always been close to the Rongwa Mansion, but in the officialdom, relationships were the most important thing. Now that the Rongwa Mansion was not as powerful as before, they couldn't expect the magistrate to fully protect them. In other words, the Wang family had already dealt with Jia Yutsuan. Just when she was feeling troubled, she heard her husband's voice. Her slightly irritated and anxious mood calmed down instantly. A stunning smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. "Yes, I'm not afraid. I'll take care of everything." She reached out and held Jia Tanchuan's little hand. Tanchuan's palm was full of sweat. She looked at her sister and nodded slightly to comfort her. Then she said to Wang Qi, "Since the Wang family is so aggressive and has unreasonably speculated and slandered the Rongwa Mansion, then we'll ask the prefecture lord to make a decision." Wang Qi was stunned. He didn't expect the other party to agree so quickly. But soon he realized what the other party was relying on. He smiled ferociously in his heart. "Naive woman, do you think Jia Yutsuan will protect the Rongwa Mansion? But didn't Madame Ma boast that everything was foolproof? Why there no news yet? Humph, I knew that pretentious woman couldn't be trusted. But it doesn't matter. There are other ways." He nodded and said, "Okay, I'll send someone to invite them." Sun Lang looked at Sister Bao in the distance and said faintly, "Unfortunately, it's best for Sister Bao and Sister Lin to do this. But I didn't expect this before. Now that they've shown up, it's not easy," he thought for a while and said to Jia Sherdao, "In that case, you'll have to do this job." Jia Sherdao said without hesitation, "I'll do as you say, brother." The younger brother was already motivated. The Rongwa Mansion was in a predicament, and the allies they thought they were reliable seemed to have betrayed them. They were fighting alone and were about to turn the tables. He couldn't let his brother down. Jia Sherdao said in a low voice, "Brother, are we going to do it now?" Sun Lang looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" Jia Sherdao was confused. "Aren't we going to kidnap or beat Jia Yutsuan so that he can't come to the Rongwa Mansion? Or use torture and intimidation to force him to abandon the dark and join the light?" "That's a good idea." Sun Lang patted him on the shoulder. The younger brother, who had just been praised, showed a happy expression. Then he heard his brother say, "But your idea is very stupid. Do you think that I only solve problems by kidnapping, intimidation, and violence?" Wasn't that the case? Jia Sherdao showed an embarrassed and innocent expression. "Okay, it's true that my style of solving problems is indeed more flexible, diplomatic and practical. Sun Lang sighed and said, "But your way of thinking is really stupid. Why don't you think about it? If your brother were to kidnap, intimidate, and beat someone up, why would I bring a piece of trash like you along? You're not Inluo." Jia Sherdao felt very complicated, but the younger brother found the key point of the problem. "Who is Inluo?" Sun Lang said nonchalantly, "Someone much better than you. I'm her fan." He couldn't understand. "You stupid Ouroboros." Sun Lang took out something from his pocket. "Had you forgotten about this?" The golden dragon circled around the golden amulet, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, majestically circling around the golden amulet. The words "majesty" is here seemed to hide an indescribable majesty and pressure, causing people to feel a sense of awe at first glance. This was the proof of imperial power, the token of a monarch, and represented the majesty of a country. The golden token arrow, a royal treasure. But it was fake. It was made with an ingot of gold. In front of him, when he entered the city in the morning, Jia Sherdao was tongue-tied. He wasn't stupid. In fact, he was smart enough to see through it. This morning, soldiers set up a checkpoint in front of the door and insisted on inspecting the carriage. His brother made a golden token, but the coachman arranged by his father was very good, so this fake didn't come in handy. At that time, Jia Sherdao was relieved, but now his heart was in his throat again. It was very simple. His brother had just said that he would do this, and this golden token wasn't prepared for him. After all, his brother didn't need this thing at all. If he wanted to show up, he only needed to blow up his own grave with a sword aura, take out the clothes inside, put them on, and come down from the sky, shouting, "Son of a B***, do you recognize me?" Everyone would be scared witless, thinking that his brother had come back to life. So, this golden token was definitely prepared for him, Jia Sherdao. Blow up the grave, scared witless, thinking that his brother had come back to life. F***, can't say it, can't say it, can't say it. Jia Sherdao knew his brother's temper. He was bad-tempered, had a jumpy mind, and was fearless. He didn't have any taboos about dying. He didn't think of this fun idea at the moment. If he knew, he would have tried it. It would definitely cause a mess. Can't say it, can't say it, can't say it. Thinking of this, Jia Sherdao hurriedly changed the topic. He stammered, "Brother, you want me to take the golden token and pretend to be an imperial envoy?" Sun Lang said with a smile. "Isn't it fun? Look at those TV shows. The bad guys are showing off, saying things like, 'I'm the law, I'm the law.' In the eyes of the people who are angry but don't dare to say anything, the protagonist takes out the golden token, and then everyone immediately kneels down and yells, 'Long live the Emperor.' Isn't that great? Anyway, I was envious when I was young. Now that such a great opportunity to show off is in front of you, you must cherish it, right? Oh, by the way, remember to tell your sister-in-law and Tanshan not to kneel. Otherwise, I'll turn this golden token into an Ultraman shape-shifting device and insert it into you until the end." Chapter 776. Jia Sherdao was the legitimate son of the Ningbo mansion. He was a feudal landlord. He belonged to the black 5 categories. His composition was not good, so his political awareness was too poor. When he heard that his brother wanted him to take the gold medal and pretend to be an imperial envoy, Jia Sherdao refused. Damn it, that's a fake. Sun Lang was a new socialist youth born under the red flag. He received an advanced communist education and believed that all emperors were idiots. King wanted to overthrow them. So if he wanted to carve a gold medal, he would carve a gold medal. If he wanted to pretend to be an imperial envoy, he would pretend to be an imperial envoy. But Jia Sherdao was different. His younger brother was a native of the Imperium. He grew up in a different environment and received a different education. Therefore, he had a subtle reverence for the royal power. Even though he was working on a rebellion with his elder brother, which was a very promising job, it had not been long enough for him to change his mindset. After all, he was using the golden arrow token to pretend to be an imperial envoy to scare people. This was too exciting. Jia Sherdao had a heavy psychological burden. He whispered, "This is fake." Sun Lang gave him a thumbs up. "Why are you panicking? You can trust my skills. This is just like the real thing." His younger brother's face was sad. "How can this be hidden? Even if we can scare them for a while, Jia Yuan only needs to write a letter and send it to the capital to ask. Want to be exposed?" Sun Lang spread his hands. "So what?" Jia Sherdao said anxiously. "There's a big problem. Pretending to be an imperial envoy and secretly making the gold medal is a crime of deceiving the emperor. It will attract the attention of the real imperial envoy, and even His Majesty will send the internal guards to capture." He understood. His younger brother had a look of realization that said, "So that's how it works. With her elder brother here, it would be useless even if His Majesty sent anyone. Not to mention whether he would send anyone." Sun Lang nodded. "Looks like you already understand." Letting Jia Sherdao pretend to be an imperial envoy was not a spur-of-the-moment joke, but a decision after careful consideration. The incident with Granny Ma and Granny Wang was beyond Sun Lang's expectations. Not only did it bring him explosive news, but it also exposed his position and made the situation passive. Therefore, many tactics and countermeasures had to be adjusted accordingly. Letting Jia Sherdao appear on the stage of Jinling as an imperial envoy could not only resolve the dilemma faced by Rongwa Mansion and catch the enemy off guard, but also maximize the power of the imperial power in Jinling. After all, the beauty of this move was that even if the emperor knew that this imperial envoy was fake, there was no good way to deal with it. Investigating it as a crime of deceiving the emperor and sending the inner guards to search his house and punish him. Not to mention that Sun Lang is here. No matter how many people you send, you will lose. Moreover, are you planning to shed all pretense of cordiality? An all-out war was about to break out? Secretly inform the relevant people in Jinling that this was a fake and let them deal with it themselves? Please, they weren't stupid. You didn't have an official imperial edict here, so what would they think? Moreover, Sun Lang was not someone to be trifled with. He could definitely turn black into white, and there was nothing you could do. Indeed, those with high martial arts could do whatever they wanted. Sun Lang said a few words to Jia Sherdao and gave him a thumbs up. Got it. As an imperial envoy, with a command arrow in hand, you can do whatever you want in Jinling and even order the government. Jia Sherdao was still a little scared. Brother, what kind of title do I have as an imperial envoy? Sun Lang touched his chin. The emperor has scruples in his heart, so he can only pretend to be stupid. But he has a bottom line. We can't go too far. For example, giving you the title of governor of Summer State or something, or asking you to transfer military and political power in the south or something. The emperor will definitely explode, and it will cause too much trouble. Wow, what did I just hear? My brother said we can't go too far. My brother actually thinks that things will go too far. He actually knew what it meant to be restrained and forced. Jia Sherdao complained fiercely in his heart, but because of his brother's tyranny, he weakly reminded him, also, brother, the command arrow is just a command arrow. It's the emperor's token and the proof of doing things at his discretion. If you really want to delegate something, you need an imperial edict. His subtext was, we don't have an imperial edict, so you should take it easy and don't be too whimsical. Unexpectedly, Sun Lang nodded. Yes, you're right. An imperial edict is indeed a problem. Before Jia Sherdao had time to be happy, he heard Sun Lang say, the main trouble with an imperial edict is that the brocade and shaft are all specially made, so it's not easy to fake. But it doesn't matter. There must be a lot of them hidden in Rongwa's house. Let's go and find one. Let's go, there's still time. The law-abiding younger brother felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on him. He shivered and said in a trembling voice, Brother, what do you want to do? Sun Lang looked at him strangely. To write an imperial edict, of course. As expected, Jia Sherdao cried desperately in his heart. Holding on to the last bit of hope, he said weakly, Brother, the imperial edict has to be stamped with the emperor's royal seal and the martial arts hall. Sun Lang reached out his hand, and a square brick on the ground broke into pieces and flew into the air, sticking to Sun Lang's palm. He slightly channeled his strength and the gold spirit chi came out. The stone in his palm trembled, and fine stone powder kept falling. A moment later, Sun Lang showed the bottom of the stone to Jia Sherdao. Are you talking about this? The ancient seal script, the majestic words. It was the emperor's royal seal. The most interesting thing was that there was a layer of the imperial army's treasure light on it. There was even an anti-counterfeiting mark on it. Jia Sherdao sighed helplessly. Forget I said anything. Sun Lang put the carved fake seal in his pocket and said, "Let's go find the imperial edict." Where does Rongwa's house usually hide the imperial edict? Do you know? If you don't know, you have to ask Pin. Hearing this, Jia Sherdao's face showed a moment of hesitation. He said softly, "I know, but brother, let's go to Ninggua's house and look." Sun Lang looked at his brother's hesitant expression and seemed to realize something. He said calmly, "Where is it?" Jia Sherdao said in a low voice, "The imperial edict represents the emperor's great favor. It has to be solemnly worshipped, so it's properly preserved in the ancestral hall." He hesitated for a moment and said softly, "Brother's armor, is there?" Sun Lang was silent, and then said lightly, "Let's go." The two quietly left the scene and rushed into Rongwa's house. Jia Sherdao peeked at Sun Lang's expression from time to time and found that his brother looked very calm. He sighed in his heart. The ancestral hall was at the back of Rongwa's house. It was the most solemn and sacred place in the house. Outsiders were not allowed to come close at all. The incense kept burning here, worshipping the ancestors and souls of the Jia family. The Tianyuan War had lasted for decades. It was a terrible beast that had devoured countless creatures. 3 generations of Rongwa's family had all died here, without exception. Without exception. The two quietly approached, and Jia Sherdao said in a low voice, "It's very quiet here. There were people guarding it, but Grandma didn't allow it. She said that there were naturally souls guarding this place. It's not beautiful if people make noise here. It said that she comes here once a day to talk and clean the armor. The ancestral hall was very big, almost like a temple." Sun Lang stepped on the stone steps and crossed the threshold. There was an incense burner inside and many memorial tablets. They were all the people who had died in the Jia family. Sun Lang looked around the memorial tablets and said, "Where is it?" Jia Sherdao said softly, "The side hall." Sun Lang turned there under Jia Sherdao's guidance. There was a painting, a suit of armor, a futon, and a memorial tablet. Sun Lang smiled slowly. It was a portrait that he had asked someone to draw. The paintings of the empire tended to be freehand, emphasizing the charm and light the form. There were few paintings that depicted the real war. Even if there were, they couldn't restore the grandeur and fierceness of the battlefield because of the layout, techniques, and theories. When he had become famous, many painting masters had painted portraits of the marshal. In terms of technique and level, they were naturally excellent. However, Sun Lang didn't like it and couldn't appreciate it. After all, he lived in an era of rapid development. The result of the collision between tradition and modernity was the former's collapse and the latter's triumphant progress. He couldn't appreciate it if he didn't have the artistic talent. At that time, Madame Dowager had sent him a letter saying that she missed her grandson. He really didn't want to go back, so he could only use the war as an excuse. Sister Sure Bao had suggested that he draw a portrait and send it back. Thus, this painting was made. Rather than calling it a painting, the degree of realism, the use of color, the layout, and the composition could already be called an ancient CG. This shocking painting not only dug out Sun Lang's mind, but also contained the shame and tears of several painting masters of the empire. Even if they talked for a long time, explained the charm and techniques, and said that they weren't painters, the marshal still slapped them in the face and said, "I'm the F*King product manager. You F*King painted like this." Thus, this painting was made. Sun Lang looked up at the Western-style painting in a wooden frame and smiled. "It's not good. It didn't restore half of my handsomeness and dominance." On the vast battlefield, dark clouds covered the city, corpses piled up into mountains, and countless broken blades and spears stabbed into the ground. Heavy armor and holy swords, a lonely figure stood on the ground. A ray of sunlight cut through the dark clouds and fell diagonally. The brilliant light dyed the warrior's armor. The man who had created countless legends on the Tianyuan battlefield stood with a sword in his hand. His expression was firm, and his straight body was like a flag that wouldn't fall. It was the last scenery on the steel battlefield. Sun Lang said, "This expression, it's really stupid." Jia Sherdao said softly, "But I miss it, the brother who used to be unparalleled in the world, the legend who used to be brilliant." Sun Lang looked at the armor next to him. It was also custom-made armor that was in line with his otaku aesthetic. The heavy armor, the domineering shape, and all kinds of graffiti. Sun Lang's hand brushed across the armor, killing one person in 10 steps, leaving no trace for 1,000 miles. All the land under the sky belongs to the king, and all the people on the shore of the land are the king's subjects. Yellow sand wears the golden armor after 100 battles, and won't stop until the sky demon is broken. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but the armor that had been in use for 3 years seemed to be trembling slightly. He didn't have the chance to wear it on the final battlefield, so it became the last memento of the Dowager Duchess. Jia Shirdao's voice was trembling. "Brother, it longs for your touch." Sun Lang was silent, and then shook his head firmly. "No, it's not mine." Chapter 777. The imperial edicts received by the Rongwa mansion were all kept in the ancestral hall, so it was easy to find. Jia Sherdao came to Sun Lang with an imperial edict on a golden scroll. He said softly, "Brother, I found it." Sun Lang stared at the huge portrait in a daze, as if he had sunk into his memories. Back then, he had jokingly called this painting "The Emperor Leads the Battle Group." This name had scared those loyal and simple painters who had suffered a lot. Looking at their posture, as long as Sun Lang dared to inscribe this name on it, they would dare to kill themselves in front of the table. He remembered that after he finished the painting, he was very proud and showed off in front of everyone for several days. The generals in the army were used to seeing the fine brushwork of the Empire School. When they saw this painting with such shocking colors, such a touching composition, and such a beautiful aesthetic, most of them were very greedy in their hearts. Unfortunately, the great painters who had painted this painting threatened them with death, so these uncouth men didn't ask for another painting. This painting was sent to Jinling, so that Matriarch Shi could see the brilliant image of her grandson. At that time, he had already exchanged letters with Matriarch Shi for a long time. He had even gradually regarded this long-winded and loving old woman as his grandmother. In the letter he sent home with the painting, he told his grandmother that after this war, he would go home. At that time, he would be as majestic as this painting, wearing the same armor, holding the same sword, and stepping through the sea of flowers in the same heroic manner. He would return to his hometown, which he had left for a long time, and return to his grandmother's knees in the midst of the firecrackers and the joy of the heavens. But what came back was only a set of armor. "No, Matriarch, your grandson has already gone home. He has already come back." Sun Lang looked at the full set of armor. The shiny metal was still frozen with the smell of blood and battlefield. When he touched every scar and every line of words, he could think of the past engraved on it. Killing generals and capturing flags, charging into enemy lines, the blood of strong enemies decorated the accumulated merits. Every great victory, every bloodbath, the wind and the golden spear, the flowers and the holy sword, gave the people who longed for victory a triumphant banner. All this seemed to have happened a long, long time ago. Sun Lang looked at the lonely memorial tablet with a calm expression. At a young age, he lost his father and brother. Surrounded by women, he grew up in the hands of women. The first and last meeting between him and that person was already a gaze of life and death. When Sun Lang opened his eyes for the first time in this world, he saw the dead him. He saw his solidified eyes, the person who looked exactly like him. Sun Lang had often wondered what was in that pair of eyes, and what was that person thinking when he died. He ran away from home for 3 years and participated in the secret plan of the imperial court. What kind of mood did he have? Did he simply want to make a name for himself? Or did he have great ambitions and wanted to make an earth-shattering career? He went through many trials and tribulations, and finally came to the front of the ancestral demonic weapon. The moment he held the sword, he heard the footsteps of death approaching, and all his efforts were in vain. Feeling the sword energy destroying his meridians, feeling death visit his body, at the moment when his soul was about to wither, what was this young master of the Roma mansion thinking? It was unknown, because their first and last meeting was a gaze that transcended life and death. One person's life ended. The other person's life was completely rewritten. He was forced to come to this world to pick up the sword and continue the other person's life. The people of two worlds, the same people, connected to each other by an astonishing string. They crossed worlds, and with the death of one of them, they pushed the wheel of fate. Should I hate you? I actually don't know. Should I envy you? Yes, without a doubt. Sun Lang gazed at the memorial tablet. Because your short life will be continued by someone else. Because someone will protect the family you left behind. Because, at least, you can still go home. The words on the memorial tablet were very few and simple. The memorial tablet of Jia Ying, my beloved grandchild. There was no official position from when she was alive, no military rank during the war, no meritorious service that shook the 6 armies, and no prestige that surpassed a generation. This was the forbearance of the truth, the concession of the imperial power, the silence of self-preservation, the silent protest, and the most sincere pain of a heartbroken grandmother. At the end of the war, she had lost her most beloved grandson without knowing why. There was only this handwriting on the memorial tablet. It was a grandchild of a grandmother. That was all. That was all. So, Jiaying, you are home. Sun Lang smiled and turned to leave. Let's go. Jia Sherdao cried out, Brother. Sun Lang's back paused. Jia Sherdao whispered, This is your armor, your painting. Sun Lang said lightly, But the person the old lady misses, is it really me? Jia Sherdao was speechless, and Sun Lang had already strode out of the ancestral hall. Jia Sherdao was stunned. He stared at the armor as if he saw the legendary and dazzling past, the flag that cut through the darkness and never fell. He hoped so much that his brother would wear this armor again and appear in front of the world in a bright and outstanding manner, forever dazzling and unparalleled in the world. A hero should always be like a hero. When Jia Sherdao, who was a little distracted, came out, he saw his brother fiddling with the imperial edict by the wall. He casually unfolded the golden silk and looked at it again and again. Seeing his brother come out, he waved at him. When Jia Sherdao came over, Sun Lang asked directly, What position should I give you? Why did this sound like a grassroots group making a wish? Jia Sherdao said blankly, Brother, you can decide. Sun Lang immediately perked up. He said, I told you the story of Journey to the West before, right? Sun Wukong used to be the horse protector. This title sounds good. What's the position in the empire called again? Oh, it's called Yuqing, right? I think this one is good. Here it comes again. Jia Sherdao rolled his eyes. Brother, stop fooling around. You think the position is too small, right? But you're still young. It's not good to give you a position. I'll give you a very powerful honorary position. Sun Lang gave Jia Sherdao a thumbs up. It's decided. You can proudly introduce yourself in front of others in the future. I, Jia Sherdao, specialize in controlling ministers. Jia Sherdao said blankly, What's that? Specialize in controlling ministers. Sun Lang said, It's an honorary position. Your job is to drill all aspects of the military parade and make sure that there are no mistakes during the parade. Isn't it very powerful? Jia Sherdao said frantically, There's no such position in the empire. There was one in the Qing dynasty. Although it totters, it has some merits. For example, I think this position is very good. Sun Lang laughed. After returning to the imperial court, I'll ask the emperor to set up this position. I'll pick someone I don't like. Oh no, pick a virtuous and loyal person to take this position. Wouldn't that be great? Jia Sherdao said helplessly, That virtuous and loyal person will die with you. Bah, who does he think he is? He's not worthy of dying with me. I've already found a victim. Seeing that his brother was getting more and more ridiculous, Jia Sherdao angrily snatched the imperial edict and said, "Brother, you're such a troublemaker. How can you treat such an important matter as a joke? This matter needs to be measured. The position and authority can't be too small or too big. The scope of authority has to be limited to Jinling. It's best to be able to deal with the current situation and help you in future operations. Therefore, the imperial edict should be written like this." Sun Lang squinted and smiled. "You know quite well, don't you? You're so good at faking imperial edicts. You're so scared when I mention this." Jia Sherdao was recalling similar imperial edicts in his mind, trying to figure out the words and contents. Hearing this, he glanced at his lazy brother and snorted angrily. Sun Lang just smiled. After a moment, Jia Sherdao handed the imperial edict over. "Erase the words and the seal. Don't mention the content." The imperial jade seal and the martial art seal are both wrong. "Brother, you..." Sun Lang reached out his hand, and a gust of moist air suddenly blew in the air. Water droplets condensed in the invisible air and soaked into the words and the red seal. Then he waved his hand, and the black and red liquid droplets floated in the air. Gradually, the words and the seal on the imperial edict faded and disappeared without a trace. Sun Lang held 2 balls of liquid in his hand, one black and one red. He nodded at the stunned Jia Sherdao. "The brush, ink, and cinnabar are all specially made. It's not easy to find them in Rongwa Mansion. Don't waste them." Jia Sherdao was shocked. "Are you 7 luminaries, sword masters, all good at faking things?" Sun Lang smiled proudly. "Of course, only I know how to do it. Other than him, who else could have the power of several holy swords? Other than him, who else could use the 7 luminaries' spiritual power like it was his own arm?" This was something that couldn't be replicated. Jia Sherdao sighed and nodded. He didn't know what to say anymore. When the 2 brothers were talking about faking the imperial edict, the Jinling prefecture lord had already arrived at Rongwa Mansion and was led into the front yard by the Wangs. Jia Tanshun whispered, "They're so fast." She was smart and smart. Naturally, she could guess the change in Jia Yutsuan's position from the Wang's attitude. She felt disdain and anger in her heart. Shui Baochai gently squeezed her little hand and said calmly, "Don't worry." Tanchuan's sister-in-law's calm attitude infected her. The little girl looked at Shui Baochai and whispered, "Sister-in-law, you seem to have changed a lot this time." Shui Baochai was shocked. She asked calmly, "Where did I change?" "I don't know. I keep feeling that something has changed." Jia Tanshun thought for a while and shook her head hard. Then she said, "But it seems to be a good thing." Shui Baochai smiled and touched Tanchuan's head. She changed the topic. "Okay, let's go welcome them." That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.